in our school in our school year by acknowledging that we gather as David Douglas School District on the traditional land of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes, past and present, who made their homes along the Columbia and Willamette rivers, and honoring with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded for generations. We further want to again acknowledge the impact of the forced removal, violence, and attempted erasure of the lives and legacies of Indigenous people, past and present, and to commit to creating an educational environment that honors Indigenous history, contributions, and encourages the continual pursuit of better stewardship of the land that we inhabit as well. And again, we want to further ground ourselves with reading our mission statement, which is our mission at David Douglas is to provide meaningful, equitable, and highly effective instruction so that each student grows and thrives socially, emotionally, and academically. Through supportive communities of learners, David Douglas staff will foster the whole child to be a force for positive change in the global society.
Prior to beginning with public comment, I would like to propose that we amend our agenda tonight to add, after the bond update, reviewing a complaint we've received.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded. So it will be on our agenda before the superintendent's report. And so now now we vote. So we'll start with Barrow.
Aye.
Saldaña Lopez, aye.
Franklin, aye.
Commander Georgeson, aye.
Okay, and it passes. Thank you. So we'll move on with our agenda to public comment. Was there anyone? Oh, thank you, Aide. Thank you. All right, and so today we start off with Amy Spencer. And remember, folks, please turn on your mic when you step in front of the table, and please state your name, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Spencer, and I teach 3rd grade at Gilbert Park Elementary School. I am here tonight to show my support for my principal, Stacy Moncrief, whom I've been led by for 10 years. Stacy has been there for me during the hardest times of my life. The deaths of both my parents, and most recently, a student in my class who left me with permanent emotional and physical scars. I could go on and on about the compassion, grace, and understanding that she shows her staff and students, but I'd like to address the main complaint that was received to you by parents at our school and how it was addressed. Firstly, I didn't know that Stacy was going through the process she was because of the lack of transparency by you, the leaders of our district. I, as a staff member, was never interviewed or asked about how Stacy supports all of our students, but especially our students of color. We know Stacy, all of us, better than any outside consultant or, quite frankly, you. If you're going to hold your employees accountable, as the complainant put it, then you should look at the other schools in the district and find out what their data says about the exclusion of Black students. And in fact, I did look at the slideshow titled SB Discipline Target Data and Restorative Practices, May 9th, 2024, that was presented to the school district. Each of the middle schools and the high school had between 19 and 42% exclusion rates of Black students. And I know that at least 3 of those schools have a higher rate than GP. And the rates are around the same as GP at all of the other elementary schools in the district. So have you also gone through the process of evaluation and an outside consultant with those administrators? I'd like to end by saying that I 100% disagree with the reasons she was asked to step down. I just wished you would have asked the people that have been under her leadership the longest, instead of a couple of parents who have known her as a principal for a short period of time. It's truly disappointing that as a staff, it was not communicated that this was happening, and more importantly, that we were not also consulted or interviewed on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Lisa Schill.
My name is Lisa Schill, and I'm a fourth grade teacher at Gilbert Park. I've worked at Gilbert Park with Stacy Moncrief since 2017, and have worked with her through a variety of roles as special education, on the IPBIS Green Team, as a first grade teacher, a first and second split teacher during the pandemic, a fourth grade teacher, worked with her on the PBIS team as a restorative justice champion for our school, and as a member of Site Council. In my years working with Stacy, these are the things I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt. She's a leader who works every day to create a culture of equity and foster an environment where everyone belongs and is heard. She places incredible emphasis and concern on community voice, as evident through her focus and intentionality in response to our schools and district's Youth Truth Survey results, and working on our school improvement plan. Did you know that in our most recent Youth Truth Survey, our families in all non-white subgroups rated GP highest in the categories of engagement, relationships, culture, communication and feedback, resources, and safety? We're in the 94th to 99th percentile for agree or strongly agree for our Asian, Black, African American, and Hispanic family subgroups for feeling that our school creates a friendly environment. Black and African American respondents also rated us 100% within the entire category of family engagement. Compared to other participating elementary schools, GP's highest rated categories for families were communication, feedback, and engagement. Stacy has gone above and beyond to perform basic functions, communicate to parents, hold conversations and engage in solutions, and problem solve with those wanting to be part of the solution. She has the skills and equity consciousness that our community not only needs, but deserves. It does not benefit this school district, community, or Gilbert Park to remove a leader as dedicated to upholding the district's equity values as Stacy, who has the ability for accountability and self-reflection and expects it of her staff as well. She inspires compassion, creativity, and inclusivity in our community. A few people not getting what they want is not the same thing as lack of equity, harassment, or discrimination in our district. The only issue here I feel that's confused is who's being held accountable, used as a scapegoat for deeply rooted educational systemic issues, and the manner and lack of transparency or advocacy that went into this process that affects not only one excellent educator, but an entire school community. Change takes a community effort, including a wide range of teachers, staff, parents, volunteers, and community helpers. So why were their voices not asked for or taken into consideration? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Amber Taj. Sorry if I mispronounced her last name.
My name is Amber Tachi. I use she, her pronouns. I've been a language development specialist since 2015 at Gilbert Park Elementary, and I'm here to speak in support of our principal, Stacy Moncrief. There will be tears, sorry. I'd also like to express my grave concern about the process by which the decision was made to ask Stacy to step down as principal of Gilbert Park. As I speak, I urge the board to consider these questions inspired by our David Douglas equity lens, a lens meant to be used when making large decisions that affect the whole community. Whom does this decision affect? Are those being affected included in the process? And what are the unintended consequences? Stacy is the best principal that I have ever worked with. I have worked with some that want to use the position as a stepping stone to their next career move, and others that have a lot of heart for their students but lack management skills. Stacy is a reflective, caring, and effective leader. When I started working with her at Gilbert Park, I found Stacy shared my passion for family engagement. Under Stacy's direction, we launched culturally specific meetings with the principal and GP's Interconvio. We began our own equity team, of which I was chair for a while, before all the schools were required to have them. Stacy's commitment to achieving equitable outcomes for all the students was clearly established before I started at the school, and I knew I had found a leader who would support me in the work I was passionate about. Support. Stacy is the most supportive administrator I know. She supports staff as professionals and as human beings. Whom does this decision affect? Look at this meeting and see how many staff members feel this way about Stacy. I know hundreds of families feel this way, but we won't know because we didn't gather their input. When you remove the principal of a school, you affect the entire community. Staff members, families, students, we are all stakeholders. We are all stakeholders. Are those being affected included in the process? Anyone who knows my work at GP knows my track record as advocating for family voice in decision-making processes. However, it's important to note that this decision seems to be based on the voices of very few. Many of us staff members are wondering why we were not interviewed. If the topic was Stacy's leadership, we should have been asked. Most of the parent and caregiver community does not even know what happened. Is this transparency? Where are their voices? We have positive youth truth data and data from district equity walkthrough speaking of our gains in family engagement, equity, and climate. Was this included in the discussion? What are the unintended consequences? This course of action reminds me of the process of reconstituting schools as a means to close the achievement gap during No Child Left Behind. That was going on when I started teaching in California. They would fire most of the staff, hire all new people, and assume that the outcomes would be better. It turns out they weren't. High-need schools now had higher turnover, less qualified staff, and no school culture. They had to start from scratch, and a culture of fear and anxiety was created. We are on a path to creating a culture where administrators and educators will feel afraid to make mistakes, that their careers will be halted. What are the unintended consequences? I no longer feel that this district is safe and supportive as a place to work. I do not feel that all the work I have done under Stacy's leadership is appreciated. I do not feel that my voice is valued. Every day since I heard this decision, I have cried. Every night, I have stayed up late browsing jobs in other districts. I urge the board to consider this as you move forward with future decisions of this kind. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Katie. I can't read the last one. Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. And then next is Dina Soriano.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Hello, my name is Dina Soriano. I use she, her pronouns. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you and make this testimony. I have been the school counselor at Gilbert Park Elementary for the last 6 years. I have been working in education for over 20 years in roles of instructional assistant, special education teacher, and now school counselor. It is my love and now my extreme concern for the Gilbert Park community that brings me here to speak with you today. I was informed on Tuesday that my principal would no longer be returning to Gilbert Park as a result of an independent investigation conducted by an outside consultant. I was absolutely devastated, heartbroken, and shocked to say the least, as Stacy Moncrief is the best administrator that I have ever worked with in my career, and I have worked with a phenomenal administrative teams. I am very troubled by the process that led to my principal being asked to step down, as it was not made transparent to staff, or most importantly, the school community. This process has caused extreme harm, as not all voices were heard in the investigation. It feels like information was selectively gathered rather than an open inquiry to gain information from multiple perspectives. My perspective was not gathered, and I worked directly with the person under inquiry. I take the complaints against Gilbert Park very seriously. We as a school, district, and community have a responsibility to provide each of our students with a safe, inclusive, equitable learning environment and communicate with families transparently. As a mom of biracial children who have been impacted by disproportionate discipline practices at their own schools in different districts, this work is personal for me as well. We are not there yet, just as other schools in our district are not there, but we continue the work and we do not give up. Stacy did not give up, as she was constantly striving, reflecting on how she and our school could improve and change to meet the needs of our community. Before I close, I would like to share some perspectives that may have been missed by the outside consultants. If you were to walk into Gilbert Park on a given morning, you would see staff, including leadership, greeting our students by name, making ourselves available to talk with families. Our leadership has encouraged us to make ourselves available to communicate with families in ways that are most convenient to them, in person, parent square, text messages. We are also encouraged to communicate student successes, their goals, as well as concerns, and to build collaborative relationships. Being the only school counselor to over 500 students is overwhelming, but with Stacy's communication, leadership, and problem-solving abilities, I felt truly supported. On a given school day, you could see her working on a rolling desk in the hallway so she could be available to support students and staff. In her office behind closed doors, having restorative conversations with students and their families to repair harm. She provided a safe student space for students who needed to talk when I was not available. One of the last things we were working on before summer break was securing a partnership to provide on-campus members for our BIPOC students. She had an overwhelming amount of responsibilities as Gilbert Park's leader, and she handled those responsibilities with the interests and needs of her school community always in her mind and heart. The hole she leaves behind is massive. I want to assure the board that I will continue to work tirelessly with the new principal to promote safety, inclusiveness, and equity for all students at Gilbert Park, just as I did with Stacy Moncrief. I request the board in the future to listen to all the voices of our students, staff, and community, rather than a select few before making a decision that has such a huge impact and many consequences. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is really small, so pardon. Jennifer Leager?
Is there a scribble?
Yeah.
Okay, that's me.
Okay.
And then I have some friends.
Yeah. Jennifer Lager. Legel.
Very close.
Thank you.
I've been called worse. Thank you. It's really dark and I have old eyes. I will do my best. Okay. Do we have? I'm in the middle. Okay, sorry. Okay, my apologies. Goodness sakes. Hi. My name is Jennifer Flagel, and I am the Title I reading specialist at Gilbert Park. I use she, her pronouns. I have worked with Stacy Moncrief the entire duration of her being our principal as both a classroom teacher and a reading specialist. Therefore, I have seen many sides of Stacy professionally as well as personally. I can tell you with absolute certainty that Stacy is the best principal I have ever worked with. Stacy cares immensely about her staff, students, and GP families. All of them. Stacy is supportive, flexible, equitable, passionate, reflective, organized, open to constructive criticism, and proactive. In fact, I could go on with a list of Stacy Moncrief's assets. She's a model employee to the school district and a strong, trustworthy leader. She's so trusted that she serves on a different district school board, just like you. To see such a strong leader, our school and our district marred like it has been is unfathomable. Trust me, I am speaking for many GP employees, students, and families when I say that this just doesn't add up. When a report states that it was unanimously agreed upon by non-administrative staff and parents that Stacy stepped down as principal, it leads to more questions than answers. What parents were interviewed? How many? What staff? How many staff? It sure wasn't a lot because it certainly wouldn't have been unanimous or even close. Was anyone outside of this incident interviewed at all? While it's impossible to make every single person happy despite one's greatest efforts, a staggering majority of the GP staff, students, families, and community partners believe and trust in Stacy. Hundreds, if not thousands, of people through the years of people believe in her ability to lead. But instead of giving that any merit or voice, you've given the power to a group that is merely 3. They tried to actively recruit individuals and families in our school to join them, but despite their greatest efforts, the group remained 3. Back to the questions that arise. Were the facts of this complaint examined? Was there actually an attempt to find the truth? Was Stacy allowed to give a factual account of what happened and explained her course of action, including her multiple attempts to remedy, restore, and repair any harm caused? Was there ever Was there ever a true investigation based on facts, or just a consultant who examined feelings and looked for negative information about her? I ask this because when there is an allegation, any decisions regarding that allegation need to be based on fact, considering accounts from multiple perspectives, including the person the allegation is made against. The Oregon School Board Association's Code of Conduct clearly states a school board member makes decisions only after the facts are presented and discussed. It also states that a school board member gives the staff the respect and consideration due skilled professional employees. It is your sworn duty to follow and uphold this code of conduct. It ensures decisions are made with full knowledge. It is a safeguard that protects assumptions. Crucial decisions like the one you made about Stacy simply cannot be made on assumptions. Stacy Moncrief is not how she was portrayed by the complainants. We disagree with all the allegations surrounding her performance and leadership. She is a phenomenal leader, always looks and acts through the equity lens, educates her staff about culturally responsive teaching practices, promotes inclusion, and uses restorative teaching practices when addressing behavior and trying to repair harm. Since Stacy is such a firm believer in fostering leaders, we have had at least 15 employees under her leadership go on to leadership positions, such as working at the ODE and OEA, becoming district-level TOSAs, specialists, vice principals, and like Stacy herself, elementary principals. She encourages and facilitates the growth of her staff, even if that means they eventually say goodbye. She is who we want and who you should want to be leading one of your schools. But instead you decided that only the words that merely 3 people conveyed could be factual, and that the rest could be filled in by using assumptions. You have the notion that this decision somehow moves us further in the fight against institutional racism, which in fact, Stacy actively fights against every single day with her philosophy, actions, and behavior. Yes, you made the decision to make one of your strongest, most highly qualified, most socially aware, and adept principals an example, a scapegoat for a global systemic problem, and it is not okay. You forgot that persistence does not equal truth. Facts do. I will continue by noting that the culture of Gilbert Park is also not like it was portrayed by complainants, largely due to our strong leadership, more specifically our strong principal. It is a warm, diverse, inclusive community that is often complemented by those who have the opportunity to visit or be a part of it. Perhaps the most telling evidence of the state of our school community is some of the data from our annual Youth Truth Survey from the 2022-23 school year, which was the year that Stacy's leadership was in question. The following is taken directly from our needs assessment, which was used to plan our new school improvement plan. According to our 2022-23 Youth Truth Survey, our families in all of the non-white subgroups, 29% of respondents rated GP highest in categories of engagement, relationships, culture, communication, feedback, resources, and safety. We were in the 94th through 99th percentile for agree, strongly agree, for our Asian, Black, American, and Hispanic, Latinx family subgroups, which was 25% of respondents, for feeling that our school creates a friendly environment. Black African American respondents, which was 4.5%, rated us 100% within the entire category of family engagement. For our minority subgroups, the lowest our school was rated in any category fell into the 74th percentile. Our school averaged in the 90th or above percentiles within the category of culture, communication, resources, and safety with our minority subgroups. And our school average for all youth truth categories, specifically our families of color, was the 93rd percentile. This data paints a very different picture of our school culture than what was heard by the board. And you know what a strong, friendly, engaging community comes from? Strong leadership. In closing, I heard the phrase, everybody benefits, when discussing this potential decision at your last board meeting. I can assure you that everybody did not benefit. You have invoked a huge trauma, a massive gaping hole at Gilbert Park Elementary, and it adversely affects the staff, students, families, and community partners. Even more is that you accepted the persistence of 3 people as truth, neglecting to pursue the staggering amount of evidence that suggests otherwise. You have severely harmed one of your most trusted, loyal, capable, and qualified employees, to satisfy a few. And after all that Stacy has given to this district and what she has accomplished as a leader, she deserved more of your trust and respect through this process. She most definitely did not deserve this. Please learn from this experience. Please learn that when making a critical decision such as this one, you have no room for assumptions or error, and that the facts, all the facts, need to be taken into consideration. This is not okay, and it is not the David Douglas way. Thank you.
Thank you. Carla Slesher? Oh, okay, cool. And then following would be Kaylee O'Neill.
Hello, I'm Kaylee O'Neill. I'm one of the 5th grade teachers at Gilbert Park. You see a lot of people in this room, but there's a lot of people that wish that they could be here and had a lot to say, and Roseanne and I are going to tell you all the things. We are here to be a voice for the people who are not here or did not come up to speak, and just so I know I at least have the board and Ken and Andy's emails, I will email you this later because I'm going to try and read not too fast, but you know, I got not a lot of time. Here we go. I'm going to start with the person's name and their role in our community and then their message. Actually, yours is first. Would you like to read your own?
You can read mine.
Oh, okay. Well, the first one's Roseanne. She's a kinder IA. She's great. When Stacy became our principal in 2011, she had very large shoes to fill. She took on that challenge and bravely asked the staff every year through a survey, "How am I doing?" And people were honest, brutally honest. And she took all that criticism and used it to make her stronger and better every year for 13 years. She has become a leader that I look up to and respect, and under her leadership, I have become a better human. It saddens me to know that this decision was made without speaking to more staff, community members, and students. A piece of me is leaving Gilbert Park with Stacy. From Lisa Schill, 4th grade. She is the best admin I have ever worked for. She leads by example, takes feedback in stride, and treats her employees as people first. The taxing, heavy side of this job has always been made lighter by simply the fact that we knew that we had an administrator in our corner, one who had our best interests at heart while striving and succeeding to lead our school with integrity, mutual respect, and equity. From Shelby Ellis, 1st grade, teacher. She has deep compassion for every single student, staff member, and caregiver in the Gilbert Park community. Next is from Eileen, 2nd grade teacher. I support Stacy because when I came to Gilbert Park as a first-year teacher, she taught me what it means to be a progressive educator who cares deeply about their students. Her leadership and guidance were crucial as I navigated how to implement culturally responsive instruction that best reflected the students in my classroom. I will truly miss Stacy as our principal and cannot have had a successful school year without her constant support. Next is from Katie Farlow, 5th grade teacher. She embodies all that we strive to be as educators and people. Warm, authentic, graceful, supportive, and reflective. The humanity and love she brought to the principal position gives me hope for my future in education and the future of our children. I appreciate more than she will know how valued and capable she made me feel. I know I'm not alone in that sentiment. Next is from Shannon, a 5th grade IA. I came to Gilbert Park 10 years ago with no previous experience in education. Stacy shaped me into the IA that I am today. I appreciate everything she has done for Gilbert Park, and she will be missed. Next is from Sarah Deliski, student behavior specialist. When I came to Gilbert Park, I had been looking for an educational home for many years, a place where I could continue to grow as an educator, where I felt respected as a professional, and where students' best interests came first. Stacy provided all of this and so much more. With her strong, supportive leadership and people-centered leadership, I knew I had found my home, a home that is never going to be the same without her. Next is from Katie Wu, 4th grade teacher. In my time at Gilbert Park, Stacy has shown nothing but exemplary leadership, kindness, and support to me and others. What I admire most about Stacy is that she leads by example, demonstrating empathy and humanity in every interaction and ensuring that equity and fairness are the forefront of all her decisions. decisions. Gilbert Park is a thriving, open, inclusive, and welcoming community because of her and her dedicated and steady guidance throughout the years. This is why I am deeply shocked and saddened by Stacy's sudden departure and greatly concerned about the lack of transparency or inclusion of staff or greater community voice in the decision making. Next is from Tyresha Hayes, who is a former employee and parent. During my 5 years at Gilbert Park, I went through some major tragedies, and Stacy was there supporting me in every aspect. Because of Stacy, I was able to go from the media assistant to the first grade teacher. I have never had a supervisor as supportive, caring, and genuine as Stacy. She would come to me for advice with the Black community, run language by me so she wouldn't offend families, and even reach out if she felt a student wasn't being culturally supported. Gilbert Park has lost a phenomenal leader. The next principal has huge shoes to fill. Allison Sheffers, former language development support. What's that? LDS. I have had the privilege of working with Stacy for 5 years, and I can't begin to tell you not only how much I learned from her leadership style, but also the work and dedication that she put in as a leader every day to create a culture of caring, kindness, inclusivity, and reflection. Within the last year, the Gilbert Park community created many opportunities for equity of voice. She has always led by example, and I am saddened that this decision was made. Gilbert Park will not be the same without her. Next is from Kaylee Tate, our learning specialist. In my 5 years at Gilbert Park, Stacy has never failed to make her community feel like home. She leads by example, shows staff, students, and families what it means to lead with empathy. She is thoughtful in her decision-making process and always maintains an optimistic view of any situation that she navigates. Gilbert Park will not be the same without her, and she will be deeply missed. Next is from Scott Burton, a fourth grade teacher. I have worked in David Douglas for over 2 decades. Stacy Moncrief is one of the kindest, most resilient people I have worked with. Each year, she strives to build a community of caring and learning for all. She works hard to keep communicating and problem solving with students and families, even when others might give up. When I need to talk to her or I have something going on in my life, I know Stacy's door is open, and she is there to listen. She works hard to implement district and state priorities each year without complaint. Even though we all know it can be a daunting task. I am saddened to see someone who has put much of their life into our staff and community move on. I don't want to take it all. Do you want to read some?
No, go for it.
Okay. I don't want to hog the mic. Okay, here we go. All right, next we have Heidi, who is an IA for 2nd and 3rd grade. I was hired in 2019 at Gilbert Park as an IA after I had been volunteering as a parent for several years. As a parent volunteer, Stacy made sure that I knew my help was appreciated. When I was hired, Stacy welcomed me as an employee and took time to answer my questions. When COVID hit, Stacy kept our community together with her leadership. She was calm and caring during turbulent times. She was a true leader. Coming back from COVID was extremely difficult, but she made sure to check in and make sure that we were doing okay and helped when we weren't. Stacy is kind, patient, and one of the most empathetic people I have ever met. She truly gave her all to the Gilbert Park community, and I wish her the best in her future endeavors. Next is Erin Faulkner, a 2nd and 3rd grade IA. Stacy as a principal is a standout and the best principal I have ever had at a school. She is fair, pragmatic, and compassionate. Stacy shows up for everyone and has always been supportive and appreciative of students, caretakers, and staff. She is a natural leader, but also demonstrates that she is one of us and is engaged and enthusiastic about learning. I have never worked at a school and felt the positivity that Stacy exudes, and it's inspiring. Next is Becky Fransky, our Student Achievement Specialist. As someone who has worked with Stacy for the past 14 years, I have witnessed firsthand her commitment to our staff, students, and families. She takes her role of leadership very seriously and leads with compassion, integrity, and encouragement. She is reflective in her practice and always welcomes new ideas and concepts. I am disappointed and frustrated that our community is losing such a strong leader due to a decision-making process that did not include the facts and perspectives from all parties impacted. Next is from Jamie McGaffey, a kindergarten IA. I have known Stacy since her first year of being a principal North Powellhurst. I have always known her to be welcoming, kind, and fair. She is an outstanding principal in person. Anyone can see how much she really loves the Gilbert Park community. Next is from Stephanie Slocum, my 5th grade teacher. Stacy was my mentor this past year as I completed my educational leadership degree, and I learned a tremendous amount of knowledge that exemplified what leadership is. She built a community at Gilbert Park that showed empathy, support, and inclusivity. I could not imagine a better mentor and find it unfortunate that she will not be able to mentor future administrator prospects. This is a loss to the community. This is a loss to the community that DDSD is so proud of. Next is from Veronica Stewart, a 2nd grade teacher. I support Stacy because she supports me. Stacy chose me to teach 2nd grade at Gilbert Park, allowing me to move from a special education to general education, something I really wanted. She has supported me with solving problems I had not faced before as a special educator. She is a wonderful person to problem solve with, asking excellent questions and never making me feel silly about my questions. I am saddened to lose such a kind and supportive mentor. And lastly is from me, Kaylee, a 5th grade teacher. Stacy and the environment that she has created are the reason that I fell back in love with teaching after being burnt out and fed up with my old district. The community she has built here is collaborative, positively challenging, and a place where everyone belongs. She's the best admin I have ever had, and I am devastated to have her taken from this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. And we move next to our DDA comment. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Student comment first. Do we have students? Okay. Then going to DDAA comment. Hi.
Okay. I don't know if Steph contacted all of you, but she is not able to be here tonight. So that's me. But I'm reading her words. It's not my words. Here we go. Hello, board members. Stephanie could not attend the meeting tonight because it conflicts with another meeting with her team. Currently, we have quite a few of our members working, teaching summer school, and serving the families in MECP. As you may or may not know, the MECP program is year-round with a series of shorter breaks, especially our early intervention providers who cannot take more than 3 weeks away from their service throughout the year. During the first 2 weeks of July, the entire MECP staff is working to connect with families and provide services to children. The EI staff work 4 weeks in July, then go on their 3-week curriculum department and mapping projects with their building or grade level teams on plans for next year and taking classes to improve their knowledge and skills. As you can see, summer is not all about time off for every educator. It is my hope that everyone gets at least a little time off to rest and rejuvenate this summer. We had a great bargaining session last night at the wonderfully air-conditioned Menlo Park Elementary. It was so appreciated that we had the space to conduct such important work despite the scorching temperatures outside. This just serves to remind us how essential it is to work towards having AC in all of our schools and sites to do the important work of teaching and learning. Holding a summer bargaining session is something of a rarity, and our team is very thankful to the district and board team for agreeing to continue the work, for agreeing to continue working towards an agreement. With several additional TAs last night, we are getting closer and look forward to returning to the table in September to discuss the important issues yet unresolved. Again, thank you for your engagement with this process and our members as we all work towards a better future for David Douglas. Thank you.
Thank you. OSCA comment?
I'm Darla Black. I'm the OSC Chapter 40 Classified President, and for the past 11 years, I've had the pleasure to have been the secretary for Stacy Moncrief at Gilbert Park. I'd like to recognize the classified staff who have stepped up to support summer school. We have bus drivers, nutrition staff, secretaries, and instructional assistants who are working hard to support our students during their extended year. I'd also like to thank our superintendent's office who worked with our managers and supervisors during the heat wave that supported our classified staff that work year-round, so they had a safe working environment during the heat, and they were able to get some breaks from that heat. So that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. So before, we usually only respond to things in agenda later on in our meeting called Reflections and Public Comment, but we wanted to take the time right now since our public comment was about a recent complaint. So we want to read part of, what our response was specifically around the process, so that it's clear, this was shared in our formal response. So on June 20th, 2024, in response to a formal complaint filed on October 3rd, 2023, the board met to conclude the process and deliberate on recommendations on this complaint. The board commissioned an external investigation as per requested in the initial complaint. The board then reviewed potential consultants that were recommended by various sources, including administrative staff and parents who filed the complaint. From that, the board members interviewed and narrowed down the list of consultants and asked each questions around their consulting approach, specifically focusing on equity and restorative justice lenses. Each board member who interviewed a consulting firm wrote up their findings and presented that to the rest of the board members and cabinet, as well as recommendations. Wait, I lost my place. Wrote up their findings and presented them, as well as recommendations to the rest of the board in executive session on our January 11th, 2024 meeting. In this meeting, board members agreed to proceed with Arctic LLC and agreed that the board chair and vice chair would continue the work to help coordinate the preceding work. And so then administrative staff worked with Arctic to create a contract that was assigned late February that included check-ins about the investigation. Board chair and vice chair provided relevant information to Arctic LLC team, including initial complaint and contact information of those involved and policies that were relevant to the nature of the complaint. Arctic LLC then proceeded to conduct their investigation from March to May 2024. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Let me start from that last paragraph. So administrative staff worked with Arctic to create a contract that was signed late February that included check-ins about the investigation. Board chair and vice chair provided relevant information to Arctic LLC team that included the initial complaint, contact information of those involved, and policies that were relevant to the nature of the complaint. Arctic LLC then proceeded to conduct their investigations March to May 2024. Arctic LLC shared the report of their findings and shared with the board to all board members to be discussed in executive session on June 13th, 2024. And their findings were shared with the board, the parents of the complaint, and administrative staff. And then there's, attached is a document of Arctic LLC's findings. And just, the findings was a 19-page report. We spent, a lot of time being thoughtful about, who was handling the investigation, the reasoning of, pursuing an outside consultant, was to have folks, do like a factual outside perspective from, that time. And so, from March to May 2024, had that investigation and then concluded with their results that came from, that 19-page report and also a video talking over the recommendations and conclusion of their investigation that was also shared. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything else, but wanted to just read the timeline. We will check in. Yes, we will double check on that because there's some personnel and due to the complaint. So we will check on that and we will respond either way in what we can. So with the rest of our meeting, we have invited public input from Elevate Oregon.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Chair Sadana Lopez, Vice Chair Franklin, Assistant Superintendent Spears, Superintendent Richardson, thank you all for having us again. It's been a special year. It's been a really special year for us to be here and to start the school year with really no expectations. We didn't know how it was gonna go. We didn't know what it was gonna look like. And to persevere, to get through the ups and downs and to be here today to say it was a success. I want to tip my hat to you all for your partnership and just having the confidence in letting us come into your school district to serve your students and families. Before we get going into this, I would like to call a student that has been working in Elevate Oregon, working the program. She's a special young lady. She spoke at our kickoff event in the fall earlier this year. She did such a great job. I just remembered her, and I'm like, you know what? I need you to come and testify to people in your district about how great Elevate Oregon is. So I'm going to call Darlene Chavaria to come sit with me to start us off. And I will sit right next to you, so you don't have to be nervous. There you go.
Good evening, David Douglas members. My name is Darlene Chavaria. I'm a student within Ron Russell Middle School and an upcoming 7th grader. To me, Elevate Oregon is a program that sees potential in students and pushes them to their academic limits and personal development by supporting us in and outside the classroom with our assignments and by having one-on-one conversation, giving us all the support and tools needed to overcome any obstacle we may be facing, not just in school, but also in our personal lives, so we can be better prepared to be future leaders. It's an amazing program that encourages students to do better, to be better, and to raise higher in life. They believe in non-aggressive ways to redirect, like having one-on-one restorative conversations to strengthen and build a better and stronger relationship with us, and leading by example. I personally have grown in many different areas of my life. I have built new qualities such as leadership and courage that I wasn't able to have before. I also learned to have integrity and what it means to have positive work ethic. I also grew academically. I remember I used to have a B and was struggling with a certain subject, but with the help of my mentor, I raised it up to an A. Before Elevate, I had a lot of trouble asking for help from my teachers because I felt scared and nervous. I was very insecure of myself and I felt stuck and I didn't know who to ask or what else to do that could help me improve in this area. But being in Elevate has given me the confidence that I needed to overcome this obstacle. Now I can confidently ask one of my mentors for help or the teachers if I need it. My mentor, Miss Jessica, and Mr. Jordan have helped me a lot. A specific example is when I came to Miss Jessica because I had a lower score than usual in science. She helped me by giving me ideas and strategies on how to improve my grade and keep it up like that. Elevate has overall just been an amazing and uplifting program in my life and to many other of my classmates. One of many beautiful memories I remember is our last 6th grade class of the year where our mentors went out of their way to give us an amazing treat that made us feel very special. We had snacks and a special drink that Miss Jessica taught us how to make right there in the classroom called Italian sodas. We watched a movie and some of us decided to stay for lunch and recess to hang out as a class with our mentors. I love this program and I am very excited that I can continue it in 7th grade.
We have one, you can ask one question. Can you fill one? They get one question. Who wants the question?
I don't want the question, but I'm going to take a little executive privilege just to say thank you, and you did a great job. Amazing job.
Thank you.
You can go back and sit down. Good job. So as we get into our presentation this evening, we can go ahead and click the next slide. I think we talked a little bit about who we are at the last meeting back in December when we were here. For the most part, we're here through long-term relationships. I really feel that these one-off organizations don't really hit the target. So we're here. When I say we're here, we started with Ron Russell Middle School in September. The young lady who you just heard, she went through a whole entire year with us, and next year she's going to move over to the 7th grade, and we will follow her. As we continue to progress and build this out, she is going to be, along with that cohort, the first high school group that goes through, and that's a little ways from now, so she's in 6th grade now, able to sit here and do that. Just think what she's going to look like in 9th grade, 10th grade, and as she move on through her career. We can go ahead and click. So really what we've tried to do, and I said this in the beginning, that we have to align with your goals. So we took a deep dive with Ms. Spears, we took a deep dive with Cassie, we took a deep dive with Ida to really look at what are the objectives for David Douglas students, starting in 3rd grade and as they continue through their school career all the way until they graduate. So everything that we do is really truly aligned with Ron Russell. You're going to get a chance to meet with that mentor, the mentors who mentor this young lady. And as we work with Principal Contreras, we're able to align what we're doing to the objectives of their school and ultimately your district. So what we're trying to really prove here is just to get them to attend more, to be in school. We know if they can get to school, they're able to learn, they're able to be around positive adults, as opposed to being sent home, suspended, expelled, going home where there could possibly be some adults that are not so positive. The goal is to keep kids in school. Again, it's the experience. Are they enjoying school? Are they liking school? Are they love being in school? So if you look at that 3rd bullet, kids are enjoying school more. I'm pretty sure if you were to speak to her offline, she would say that her mentor is one of the reasons that she's going to school, and we really, really strive to be a part of that. Families, you're going to get to speak and hear from one of our mothers that has a student in our program. So it's very important for us to connect not only with the student, teachers, and faculty members, but also the family members that we're serving their students. Next slide. Xavier, come on up, Xavier. I don't think you guys met Xavier last time. Great picture. I'll let you say a few words. Xavier started with us when?
5 months ago.
So 5 months. He is. I'll let him tell you who he is. Go ahead, Xavier.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you guys for having me. I'm Xavier Friday, the regional manager for the David Douglas School District. When I first started here, we had 2 schools. Those schools were Ron Russell and Ventura Park. We were serving probably about 60 kids. Within the short time that I've been here, we're almost at 10 schools now. Every school that we go to seems to have heard of us. and would love to have us within their building. I've got a great team, spearheaded by the one and only Donnell, but the people who are doing the actual groundwork are these guys behind me. They're there every day for these kids in ways that, you know, the average teacher could probably never just break down a kid in the way that these guys are able to get in and get to know them and know the things that they like and the things that they need and address their needs. I don't know what else to say. I wasn't very prepared.
No, you did fantastic. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think you all met Sarah. She was here last time. She's our overall program director for the organization. Next slide. Jessica Ruiz Rodriguez, she started with us at the beginning. She's the teacher mentor at Ron Russell. We recently were able to secure a yes, get the paperwork done, and we're able to start in Gilbert Heights. Andre Reason, he's the mentor there, and he's working with 3rd grade through 5th grade. And we also have Nia Bradley. She started with us at the beginning as well. She started at Ron Russell. We had 2. And Lydia was like, I like this and I want it. And so we ended up going over and having a chat with Lydia, got the paperwork done, and we moved Nia Bradley over to Ventura Park. So I'm going to pause there and let the mentors, Nia Bradley first, just kind of talk about her experience at the elementary level with her students at Ventura Park. You got 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Nia Bradley, and it's a pleasure to be in the district. All the staff, all the teachers have been super warm and welcoming. The students are amazing, and I'm just blessed to be able to be in the district with you guys.
Give me one success story.
I have a 3rd grade student, and her dad is suffering from some drug addiction issues, and she's been coming to school crying and not really opening up to anyone. And I've been meeting with her at lunch, and we sit together, and slowly but surely she opened up to me about the situation and how she's not feeling confident about not being able to stay with dad anymore. And we talked about it, we set some goals, and I check in with her, what I did during the school year. 3 times a day we met. We had special breaks for her, and it really seemed to help and improve. She started coming to school more because she was missing a lot of school, because she didn't want to go to school. So, yeah.
Thank you. The next mentor I want to call up is Jessica Ruiz Rodriguez, and she is the mentor at Ron Russell.
Good evening, everyone. Well, I'm going to use the time that she didn't use. I wrote it down just because I didn't want to miss some really important details. I am new to this as well, so I'm a little nervous. So I'm just going to go ahead and start. My name is Jessica Ruiz, and I work as a teacher mentor at the Ron Russell Middle School. I am honored to be here tonight and would like to share with you a little bit of what a life-changing program Elevate is. To begin with, I was born and raised in Mexico because of a bad decision that I made that in my teen years, I wasn't able to finish my education. Instead, I married in 2003. I came to the U.S. with my husband, and I had my first child at a very young age. All of this brought me a lot of pain and regrets as the time passed by, not because of the child I had, but because of the way we used to live. The worst in this situation was that I felt completely alone, with no family members or friends that I could talk to. I was definitely in a situation that I wasn't ready for. Not only that, but when I needed to find a job, I faced a lot of challenges, especially because of my lack of education and the language barrier. Thanks to God, a door was open for me, and I started working at a restaurant. As the years passed by, my now 2 daughters grew up and started their education. I have always wanted to give them the best I could, so we managed to put them in a private school, and since then, I started to volunteer as much as I could in school. From kindergarten to middle school, I was there pretty much every other day, helping in the classroom, playing with them during recess, and serving pizzas during lunchtime. Throughout these years, I was able to see how much kids needed to be loved and supported by an adult, especially if they are coming from a dysfunctional family. In fact, without knowing and having any idea, I was already mentoring and supporting a lot of these other kids in my daughter's classes. This experience helped me develop a passion for working with kids and youth. But still, I thought that I knew it wasn't a place for me because of my lack of education and the language barrier. So I never thought I was going to be able to be anything else but a restaurant waitress. However, back in 2018, I got to meet Elevate Oregon for the first time. A neighbor invited me to bring my daughters to a summer basketball camp, and it was free, which was amazing, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to pay for it. After the first day, my husband and I were impressed by how much these people care about our kids and how they taught them all of these different character qualities through the game. It was amazing, and we were so grateful to the mentors and Doniel for this experience that our daughters were able to be a part of. After that week, ideas and dreams started to flow in my mind, and I started asking myself, what if I could be one of them and make a difference in kids and families' lives, just like they did in ours? However, once again, doubt filled my mind, and I just knew there was no chance for me. Then a few years later, someone appeared in my life again. That was Doniel. He started to pursue me and telling me that I could become a teacher mentor and help kids, to which I laugh and I say, no way. How could I be working in a school when I didn't even finish mine? There was no way, but he still insisted. He saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself, and he saw someone in me that no one else could see, which inspired me to retake my education again in hopes that maybe one day I could become someone he saw in me. In fall of 2022, I went and I started classes at Monroe Community College to obtain my GED, and by summer of 2023, I was able to graduate and obtain my diploma. A few months later, the opportunity at Elevate appeared again, and while I was doubting myself one more time, Doniel kept encouraging me, believing in me when no one else did, and offering me the opportunity to make a difference. I have now been with Elevate for 6 months, and I can say that Elevate has helped me develop personally and professionally by gaining new skills, building confidence, overcoming challenges, and discovering strengths and abilities I didn't know I had before. Overall, this provided me with a deeper understanding of the importance of relationship building and the impact this can make on someone's life, just like Doniel impacted mine. So now, this is exactly my goal with every student, to help them grow and develop personally and academically so that they can overcome any obstacles and challenges in life and become great leaders, as well as for them to be able to see the potential that we as mentors can see in them. There is a story that I really wanted to share with you. There is a kid in my caseload that when I got to school, a few people came and told me, don't even try to get him in the program. He is gonna mess up your program. He just won't listen, he won't understand. Pretty much, there's no hope for this kid. I actually shared that with Doniel, and I said, what would you suggest? Do you think I can work with him? And Doniel made a question, and he's like, how do you feel about it? Do you think you can do it? And I was like, well, isn't it that why we're there for? Yes, I would like to try it. What's the worst that can happen, right? So I thought about it. I went and I talked to him, and I explained the program, and I told him, hey, this is what I hear so far about you, right? People, teachers, classmates said all this kind of stuff about you, but I don't see that in you. I say the student that I see, and I went and I just tell him all these kind of positive things. And I was like, I see you as, and I went on, and I make the question, and I say, would you like to be in the program? And he said, yes. Immediately, in 2 weeks, we saw the change. When we have our next meeting with the principals to talk about the kids that are getting referrals, they mentioned him, and they asked who was working with him. By then, 2 people were working with him, but none of those 2 people were actually meeting with him at all. So I offered myself, and I said, I've been working with him, and he's been responding very well, so I would like to keep working with him. He completely changed. He stopped skipping classes. He stopped getting into fights. He was doing work. I got all kinds of positive comments from all of his teachers. And that just, it meant a lot to me. But the one thing that really got to me was the last 2 weeks of school. I made him a question. I said, can I ask you something? What is it that make you change just like that? Why do you start behaving different? And he immediately looked at me and said, because of you. And I stopped and I said, why? How? And he said, you believed in me. And then he pointed at the table and the chair that we sat for the first time. And he said, right there, when you talked to me for the first time, you saw in me things that nobody saw before. You say things about me that nobody has said before. You saw me different. So at that moment, I thought, if she believes in me, I'm going to prove them that I can be different. So at that moment, I remember what Donielle used to tell me before, and I was just like, this is exactly the same situation. And I keep working with him. Actually, earlier today, we just had lunch together. So it's amazing, and this is why I love this program. We don't only mentor students, kids, but also my goal is to reach out to the parents, grandparents that are working, having kids at home. His situation is very rough right now, so this, I will just keep going. This has encouraged me not to only help and support students and their families, but to also build long-lasting, meaningful relationships with them inside and outside of the classroom, taking the transformative power of mentorship into our communities. You never know if you may be that one person that can help change someone's life forever. I wanted to express our gratitude and to thank you all for your belief in our organization. Your decision to open the doors for us has not only provided us with new opportunities, but has also infused our mission with renewed purpose to make an impact in a whole different level. Mentoring through Elevate hasn't only changed my students' life, but it has forever changed mine. I want to say thank you.
Okay, and we also stand Jordan Griffin for us. He's also, so Jordan, and I'll give you a chance to speak toward the end, so we're going to move on a little bit. But Jordan was a district employee, so don't beat me up, okay? Jordan was a district employee working at Ron Russell. As we started doing work, he was like, "Man, what is this Elevate Oregon about?" We chatted, passed him on to Sarah, and Jordan came onto our team. So he's still in the district, same school, just a different color. That's all. So we'll move on to the next slide. And I passed these handouts out. I sent the first slide, and we'll look at this together. This is what I really wanted to take some time to really look at it together and explain what the data is. So if you look at the handout is going to better explain what you're looking at on the board there. So if you look up there, you'll see the David Douglas Synergy. So this is coming straight from your data team, from your people at your district. So we look at 22 kids that we were working with at Ron Russell. I believe that's that's Ventura Park. So this past school year, non-Elevate kids, it looks like behavior incidents went up 31%. Compared to the 22 kids that are in Elevate, it decreased by 3%. And if you look at the numbers, so if you go down, the next one is behavior incidents in 2023 with the same kids. So last year, those same kids in 2022, 2023, it continued to rise in non-Elevate, and it decreased in Elevate students. So that's what the data is saying here.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Are these the same 38 were you working with them in both years, or were you looking backwards?
We were not. So we went back. So they were able to provide us with the data from the kids before we even became with them. Mm-hmm. So we looked at what they were doing before us, and we looked at what they were doing with us.
Okay, and then for Ron Russell, you have your mentors are 6th grade mentors?
Yes. So
were you looking back to
5th grade?
So this is their 5th grade data versus their 6th grade data. Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And if you go down a little bit, so it says all incident reports. So if you look at Ventura, non-Elevate, 651 to the 71 Elevate, so it's 722. So it kind of breaks it down. So if you have any questions, I could answer that. So if we flip to the other side, I did not bring my glasses, and it's dark in here, so it's a whirlwind right now. Okay. So if we look at the next set of data, we got attendance. 22, 23. Okay, thank you. 22, 23, we have non-Elevate kids. The attendance went up. I'm sorry, 2022 to 2023, and then 2023, 2024 school year. Non-Elevate went up 1.6 and 1.13 for our Elevate students. Going down to the next box there, the change in attendance, so 2022, 2023 to 2024 at Ron Russell, attendance, I'm not looking at this correctly, okay. So Elevate students, it decreased by 0.1% compared to non-Elevate 3.17%. And then it has the breakdown there of the total year. So let me just pause there. I know it's a lot. Are there any questions on? Thank you. You could go ahead and change it because they have it. Are there any questions on that part of it? So really, the real highlight for us is if we're looking at Ventura Park. The behavior incidents for non-Elevate went up 31% to a 3% increase. And then if you look at the next year, this school year that just happened, it went down 42.4% decrease in incident reports. So that was a huge highlight for us. Nia Bradley's at that school. You heard from her earlier today. And you got to remember, this is just a small sample size. We've only been here really fully going in Ron Russell. I think we got our caseload in November. Ventura Park, same thing. We got our caseloads in November. Gilbert Heights, we just got our caseloads. I don't even think we have our caseloads yet there. We're just in the building. I believe we're going to start Menlo Park. We will be starting Menlo Park this school year. Also, Fur Ridge, we've met with Amy, so we'll be starting there here in the next couple weeks. Alice Ott, we will be starting in the fall. Floyd Light, we will be starting in the fall. I said Menlo Park, and the goal is at some point to kind of just slowly continue to build our program and our services into every school. So it's been intentional to do it slow. Instead of going full bore, 4 mentors here at the high school, it wouldn't work as well because we don't have the relationships. So the young lady who you just met earlier today, starting with her in the 6th grade, we're going to work with her all the way until she graduates, and then 3 or 4 years after she graduates. So we'll continue to monitor her there. The 3rd graders that started with Nia this year, those students are even going to have more of an impact from us because they've started at a younger age. When they get to the Floyd Lights, the Alice Otts, and the Ron Russell, they should be a little bit more ahead than this year's 6th grade class. So we know it works. We're excited about it. And I'll pause there again to ask any questions on that.
I have a question about, so cohorting up, so you have 6th grade this year. So do you add in more mentors for each grade level does your mentors follow?
We do.
So the 6th grade will become 7th and so on?
Yep. So this coming school year, so we have Jordan, who you just met, and also Yessica. So one of those two are going to take this year's 6th grade class. They're going to go with them to 7th grade. And one of them will take the incoming 6th graders. And then the next year, those kids go to 8th grade, 7th grade, and then we'll get the new incoming 5th graders. And then we'll have a full middle school program at Ron Russell next school year.
So you'll have 3 mentors then?
Yes, we'll just add them. Yep, we just add them as we go. And that was really the intentionality about starting slow, starting with 1, pilot it, and then we just kind of move as we go. And again, this is not costing the district anything. We have great partnerships outside of Elevate. We have to raise our money. We've been very fortunate with some really, really good partnerships that believe in the work, that has donated close to over $1 million to this initiative. And again, this is where we wanted to be, and we're excited to continue to work with you all.
Thank you.
We can go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, you can go ahead. Go ahead. Yes.
I was just going to ask, how do you identify which students to work with as far as the mentorship goes?
Yeah, so we're really, us being so new in the district, we really rely on the principals. We really rely on the counselors, word of mouth. So I would just kind of give you an example. It's been beautiful, to be very honest with you. When I first landed at Elevate, it was kind of already going. So be able to start this and be able to really be intentional working with the principal, the counselors, we're able to really identify, number one, we're looking at our black and brown students. We're looking at attendance, and we're also looking at behavior incidents. So we're looking at those three things, also aligning with David Douglas initiatives and what breaks down there. So we're able to identify who needs it, why they need it, and how we're going to be able to work with them, with the principal. So we're working hand in hand. As we continue to get more build more relationships here in the district, we'll be able to, kind of say, hey, this looks like an Elevate kid or a kid that we could work with. And that's happened. That is starting to happen. Just like you heard from Jessica, that student, I don't believe, was in Elevate. She came to me, asked me about him. I'm like, let's get him. I don't think we're going to say no to any kid that wants to be in it. Well, we're not going to say no. Let me rephrase that. We're not going to say no to any kid that wants to be in Elevate.
So it sounds like a lot of the decision-making process is built on relationships
Absolutely.
with school staff.
Absolutely. And again, you want a kid to want to be in it. We don't want to force it. And I think we have some great mentors, leaders that kind of help ease that transition. Sometimes it could be deemed as, am I a bad kid in this? Why am I in this class? So we've been able to really work with the parent, the teachers, the counselors to ensure them that this is extra help. This is extra push. And we've been able to be successful so far.
Hey, thank you. I'll hold.
Absolutely. So there's the breakdown of the students that we're serving in your district. 37% Latinx, 38% African American, 1% Native American. And again, this is a very, very small sample size with us only being here for a few months. That should grow. And my hopes are that it grows on the Latinx side. So we're really looking to try to add staff that identify with those kids. So we want to make sure we're intentional about the mentors that we're putting with those students as well. 5% white, 6% Asian and Pacific Islander, and 11% multicultural. We can go ahead and switch it. So the intentional, the balance of male-female, as you can see, we're serving 55% females, 45% males. So right now, that'll kind of conclude the slideshow, but I also have a parent. Come on up. I'm going to mess your name up, but let me make sure I pull her name up. My eyes are bad. I'm telling you, Jessica Terry. So she's a parent, again, from Ron Russell Middle School. Thank you for coming.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Like you said, I'm Jessica Terry. I'm Omari's mom. I have 4 children, and I was asked to speak tonight about how Elevate Oregon has impacted my family. So for you to better understand where I'm coming from, I want you to know where I came from. I was raised in the heart of Northeast Portland by a single mother. Growing up, I went to our neighborhood schools, King, Tubman, Jeff. If you're from Portland, you're probably well aware of the stigma and reputation of drugs, violence, low test scores that are surrounding these schools. And with that, one would rightly assume that these schools also lack the resources to proactively support their students in creating a successful future, let alone academically. I don't want to paint a completely horrible picture. We did have extracurricular programs like SEI that were key in helping many students pursue their dreams. But these programs and many similar cater to specific ethnic groups, in turn excluding some who would have benefited from their help. We also had some teachers who really cared about us and spoke life and positivity into us every chance that they could. And for them, we're very grateful. But we all know classes have always been big, And outside of teaching and managing behaviors, their kind words and encouragements could only stretch so far. Many of my peers, myself included, were just pushed through the public school system, graduating without the knowledge and life skills needed to navigate the adult world. Coming from the inner city, many of our parents lacked these skills too, because they were part of the same system, and that's how the cycle of poverty begins. Because we never were given the proper tools we needed to go into the world, just learning by trial and error, reacting to the environment instead of growing in it, which leads me to where I am today. I told you I have 4 kids, and my oldest son is going to be a sophomore now, first-year college student from both mine and his father's family. And although he made it, and I'm beyond proud, this experience has made me realize just how much the school system was lacking. He was never taught how to fill out his FAFSA or what he needed to complete the college applications. His schools didn't teach him how to study or that a D in college is not passing. He wasn't taught the types of careers that are available depending on the major he chooses, and he definitely wasn't taught the importance of money management or how to fill out tax forms, all these things that will affect the rest of his adult life. We moved back here in 2021 after being in Seattle for about 10 years. And like I said, I grew up in Northeast Portland, and I brought my kids to David Douglas School District. I had no idea about anything about David Douglas School District, so I wasn't nervous, I wasn't scared. We were just going in it with, positive intent. And I had a very, very bad experience in the high school with my 2 sons. It left a very, very bad taste in my mouth. So I was beyond ecstatic when I received the call from Elevate Oregon asking if my son Omari could be a part of their program. When he began to break down the program and all it intended to offer, all I could think was finally. They finally are creating a program that is proactive, accredited class offered during the school day, teaching kids about life skills, career development, study habits, and more. And most importantly, they aren't conforming to systematic education and expecting these kids to adapt to their techniques. Instead, they're meeting these kids at their level. They're taking the time to learn what makes them tick, what sports they like, who their friends are, what their home life is like, and anything else that will assist them in creating a safe space for the kids to trust them and actually build relationships. She listens to me when I talk to her, and she really cares about what I'm saying. That's what my son told me about Miss Jessica. She's been consistent, showing him that she truly cares about all aspects of him, not just him as a student. Not only does she check in with his teachers, but she also finds the time to communicate with me and keep me up to speed in his school life. And even this summer, she's reached out to me to check on him and myself. In this short amount of time, she's coordinated meetings with his teachers and myself, as well as initiating a plan to get him back on track. If I didn't know any better, I would think he was the only student that she was dealing with. In addition to all these awesome tools they're providing, they also find the time to have fun, providing opportunities we as parents may not be able to afford our children. From blazer games to snowboarding, these rewards help instill positive reinforcement and the truth to the well-known saying, work hard, play hard. I can't wait to see how Omari's going to flourish. This year was really tough for him. We didn't end as strong as we wanted to, but I know that if it wasn't for Elevate Oregon, he would not have passed any of his classes. They motivated him to go to school. He wanted to be there. He is excited for next year. The things that he was dead to the world there for a while, didn't want to do anything. So I can't wait to see what they're going to do. And honestly, with the experience that I had with David Douglas, and I had told Omari this, I was ready to move in order to be in a whole different school district because of how horrible that experience was. And because of Elevate Oregon, I'm going to stay. So, thank you. Appreciate you.
I want to bring up, we're just kind of going to conclude pretty quickly here, but before we do, I just want to bring up one of my board members, Cara Adams, and she can kind of talk to you a little bit about her experience with Elevate and from a leadership perspective. Cara, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, good evening. As Donnell said, my name is Cara Adams. I have been a board member for 3.5, maybe 4 years, honestly. I moved here from Washington, D.C. I am a product of Howard University. I am the anomaly. I have 3 degrees, so I don't have a story that is very similar to a lot of the students I see every day at Elevate. However, I knew coming here from a predominantly black city that my experience would be looked at very differently, and I wanted students to see what they could do if they saw someone who had multiple degrees, who went to school, who worked in sports, who moved across the country, who lived in 5 different states. I wanted them to see what that experience could be like. So I was very adamant to find a program that spoke to one, if not all, of my values when it came to God, kindness, brown and black kids, and giving back to them. So I found Elevate, Elevate found me, I suppose, and we have been working together since. So my hope in all of this is just to be a presence, to sit in our board meetings and make sure I have a say for things that are going to impact kids who look like me, and also make sure I can be present in them. If it's going to a field trip, or if it's going to family event, or if it's donating clothes or extra tickets to an event, whatever I can do to be a sounding board, whatever I can do to show up for children, for families, for this guy, is what I've been trying to do. So I think that one day I have little children as well, and I want them to have a program where they can rely on folks to not just show up for them after school or on a weekday at certain times, but all throughout the year, throughout the summer, and what have you. So I'm very grateful. I'm very proud to be a board member for Elevate Oregon, and for what we're going to continue to do, because this one thinks a lot, has a lot of great ideas, and keeps us on our toes. So that is my spiel.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Billy Ladd, come on up, brother. I didn't see you back there. Another board member. And Billy's been with us for a while, and great sounding board for me, so it's great that you guys are showing up.
Of course, Donnell. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Billy Ladd. I grew up in North Portland. My parents went to Jefferson High School, and what I do now is I've learned to become a part of the nonprofit youth-focused and education-focused arena. And I've sat on multiple boards for different organizations. And I have a lot of it in my household. My wife is a co-founder of Kairos PDX. I'm not sure if you've heard of that organization. So I'm around it a lot. And when I first learned about Elevate Oregon, I looked at a YouTube video and was really touched by what the kids had to say about their teacher mentor in that video. So it was very impressive, and I was able to talk to Donnell and attend one of their fundraising events, and they asked me to join the board, so I immediately jumped at that opportunity. The work they do is amazing to me, because I've, again, been around many different nonprofit organizations, and this organization really stands apart from others by what they do. And I really like the fact that they deeply engage themselves in families, not just the students, but the families. And that's where the most impact is made. And this gentleman right here, I've been a part of the organization for 4 years. And over those 4 years, I've watched him transform and grow. And the coolest part about him is he does that, provides those same opportunities for his staff. They have coaches. They encourage them to continue their education. And most recently, he and I are talking about bringing in some local financial planners to work with their staff, so they learn how to manage money, because the staff is from the neighborhood as well. And so none of us get that type of education as we're growing up. They don't teach basic financial management in school. So the services and the inspiration that he provides to the staff is quite amazing. So happy that there's an opportunity to expand over here in David Douglas, and really looking forward to what's coming next.
You're welcome. He always does a good job. I love Billy. And now, come on, Jordan. Jordan, we got to let Jordan speak. He was in the district, so I want him to kind of talk about his experience with Elevate, but also just working in the district of David Douglas.
I'm Jordan. I started working in the district about 1.5 years ago after I tore my Achilles. So initially doing this job was my first time working in a school setting. Initially, I was generally good with kids, like with my little sisters, and having them grow up and teaching them stuff from high school or wherever they need to learn math, English, science, anything. So I had that gene in me or ability to teach kids. It was something that came naturally. When I went to the middle school about 1.5 years ago, I came in as an IA. Pat myself on the back. I killed it. I was bonding with all the kids. I was Mr. Jordan. I was in the classrooms. Every teacher wanted me in the classrooms. When I switched desks, so like I was only for half a year. I came in there in December. Then the next year I came in, I wanted more of an impact. I was working as an IA. You have kids on IEP that you work with, so it's about like 20, 30 kids. So I wanted more of an impact, so I switched to the restorative room, which they just switched to. It was ISS before, but to restorative room to get a less negative connotation. So I was running that room, did a really good job. Did such a good job. Rewind. Did such a good job at my job as an IA, and I had to do after-school detention that a lot of the kids wanted to do tutoring. So I helped start tutoring at Russell. Next year they get tutoring for 7th and 8th graders. I'm doing the restorative room. I'm working with, this time it's not IEP kids, it's quote-unquote the bad kids. Because the restorative room, if they're upset, they're in trouble, fighting, stuff like that, they come see me, we talk, we calm down. We get to work, we start working on stuff. Really good impact there, but again, I want to have an impact on the school and all the kids in total as much as I can. So I said I was working in the room with Elevate. When they got hired at Russell, I was in the room. So they had a previous employee named Lamar, he came in, and we talked about it every day. Him building the program, what the program's about, what they offer, and it's really piqued my interest. And then Jessica came in a couple months later. We started talking again. I see the passion from these people. I see what they're providing for the kids, and I'm like, I do the same thing, but I'm limited in a role. I can't take it outside of school. I can't give them gifts. I can't show them that I want to work one-on-one, pull them outside the classroom. I have to stay in this room to control some of the kids in the school. So I chose to come to Elevate because of what I've seen from the former employees, what I heard from Donnell, from the staff there. I popped in the classroom myself just to see how it goes, hang out with the kids to see how their day goes. I couldn't say anything better than like Elevate's been like the perfect situation for me. I wanted to create the biggest impact I can on the kids, the family, and engaging the family and engaging the kids and making them believe in themselves. That's the biggest thing for me, is inspiring the kids to believe in themselves. It can be anything, sports, academics, just to have a thought of belief that you can do something, just anything. So that's my main reason for joining Elevate and wanting to see Elevate grow. And then obviously you don't know, but I'm an alumni from the district. I went to Ron Russell Middle School, so I have home pride in Ron Russell, home pride in David Douglas. I graduated from David Douglas. So I want to see these kids succeed. And we do have a negative connotation about the schools. Kids will tell you that Ron Russell is known as being ghetto. This area is known as being bad, and I'm like, it's not. You got to change your perception of it, all right? You guys, it's not that. It's not that. So that's my biggest thing. I want to create an impact in the community, impact in the school, and just see the kids strive for greatness.
Thank you, brother. Did I miss anyone? Okay. I just want to conclude before we do. I just want to say again, thank you. The people that show up for me, the people that show up for your kids, the people that show up for your district. I just want to say thank you, everyone that showed up today. Thank you for your belief. You're hearing some of the good things. We know it's not all good. You know, we have our challenges. We have our challenges with your staff. We have our challenges with trying to make sure we understand how to do the work in your district. We understand it's not going to be an easy transition, but the people that you've heard from, you can see where we're coming from. We're just really trying to make a difference. We want to see your graduation rates go up, your attendance go up, and your incidents go down. And I think together, we can really do something on the east side. And I'm just looking forward to continuing to build this relationship, continuing to get every school in your district Elevate Oregon mentor. And I say school year 27, will be the first Elevate Oregon students to enter your high school. So we're looking forward to that. So, whenever you have Elevate on your docket, it's not going to be 10, 15 minutes. It's going to be, it's going to be a little bit. So we apologize, but we're passionate about what we do. We're going to wrap it up, and I just want to say thank you again. Have a great summer.
Thank you. For board members, if there's a burning question, we'll take one. But if not,
questions are definitely.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will continue with our agenda with consent agenda, which is an action item. So do I have a motion?
I'd like to motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? No. Perfect. It's been moved and seconded. So we'll vote starting with Jose.
Gilmer Jorson, aye.
Franklin, aye.
Saldaña Lopez, aye.
Barrow, aye.
And it has been moved and voted on. So then next, talking about our end of year update, presenter Brooke O'Neill.
Thank you. And we are going to start with attendance, if that's okay, because they are correlated together. So Andy's going to do attendance, and then I'll do the academic.
All right, Andy, take it away.
Okay. Sandy, do you have the attendance? There you go. Thank you, Sandy. Okay, so attendance data. I think I'm starting because I don't have quite as much to share. But attendance data typically is not really the most uplifting set of data to look at, but we do have some positives to share tonight that we're building on as a district. But what you're seeing right now is a chart that we send out monthly to admin, counselors, secretaries, attendance specialists, cabinet. I want to thank Derek's team. He, under his leadership, we get this data every month, and then we send it out to schools so they know how they're doing with attendance. So I'll go through this and just explain what you're looking at. You may already know this, but there's two columns, right? The column on the left has a little bit more color to it. That's what you're called ADA, or your average daily attendance. And that is measured, well, it can be measured lots of different ways, but this is measured monthly. And it's the average number of students who are in school that month receiving instruction. And then on the right, you see the chronic rates. So these are the students that have an attendance rate less than 90%. So one way that I know that always makes the best sense to me is when you, and we've shared this before, but when you look at this, basically, if you're under 90% for the year, that means you've typically missed about 16 to 17 school days or more. So the troubling part looking at this data is that, for example, you have, I mean, it's hard for me to see that, but like if you pick a school, and the year to date on the chronic rates, which is the far right side, that's the amount of students that have missed 17 or more school days for the year. So when I say not the most uplifting, it's just not the most uplifting. These numbers have increased quite dramatically since COVID hit, but we want to share these with you because we're always transparent about our data. Now, I'd like to share with you that I did a little bit of digging comparing both of these data sets from last year to this year. And we did have improvement in almost every school. From the year, the average daily attendance rate at the end of the year, we had almost all of our schools improve. Attendance rates are hard to move, so when you have even a 0.2 or 0.3, that's considered a success. So that's really positive from last year to this year. Also, when you look at the chronic rates from last year to this year, we actually decreased that number by 2% as a district. So when I talk about some celebrations, there are some celebrations to share. It's some building blocks, I'll call it, because our schools are working very hard, our attendance teams, to try to connect with families and kids and move this data. It's just pose to be pretty challenging work for our schools. I don't know if anyone has any questions about the attendance data before I pass it over to Brooke.
Just so I can understand what I'm looking at, what is the DDOAMS and the middle
Okay,
school, of course.
yes.
But why are there those red lines compared to the...
The red signifies a percentage, so I believe the lower the number, Aaron, it's red. The higher the number, there's a shade of green. DDOA is our online academy, and so those are the students that are enrolled in online.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Andy, how are we measuring on the online attendance? Because these are by far lower in
Yeah.
every school. So is this because I mean, it's just different, right? So
Yeah.
if you're missing a class, do you get count, but you attend maybe half of the, if you miss 2 of the classes, are you a portion day?
Yeah, I know they expect them to log in and participate in a question, and that shares whether or not they're attending or not for the day. I don't know, Derek, if you have any more to add on that, or does anyone of our team know?
Well, that's not true for the elementary though, right? They're online, they're live classes, correct?
Yeah, those are live classes. Yep, that's secondary. Has that where they log in and I know what Shauna used to do is they used to have a question that they would ask them on a Google sheet, and then whoever logged in, they could tell that those kids were logged in for the day. The elementary, the K-5 they're live for not the full day, for part of the day. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I can answer that clearly enough. I'd have to ask Shauna and get back to you all.
I don't know.
I don't want to
exactly
put
how
you on the spot,
yeah,
Derek.
I don't know how we're tracking that exactly, but the rest of we measure instructional units, so it's really by period, and then it rolls up to the state in half days is how that works. And it's the same at DDOA as it is any other school.
So with the online academy, the middle and high, could they potentially not log in one day and do 2 days worth of stuff in one day, but then only get credit for 1 day of attendance?
Yeah, it's daily attendance.
Sorry. So if that were to happen, it would just count the 1 day.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. If what were to happen?
If, let's say there's 2 days, there's curriculum for day 1 and day 2, and the kid does not log in at all day 1, but then in day 2,
Yep.
there's 2 days worth of work, so they're perfectly caught up.
Yeah.
Do they still get only 1 day?
Correct.
Yeah.
For attendance, correct. For the work, that's great. But for the attendance, they would log in as a day that they were expected to attend.
I feel like there's a problem there with how they figure out attendance then. Okay.
But I mean, that could really be in any school day, because you could not go to school for a week and do all your work at home and show up Monday, and you would have a poor attendance rate, but you may have all your work turned in depending on the teacher's expectations.
I just want to, so it looks like we're having positive change for chronic rate change. I think it's your other document, your year-over-year one.
Yeah,
But
right there.
Yeah,
Yes.
But not high school. High school's worsening on both standards. Increases your improvements in elementary and middle.
Right. That's for our entire high school. That's counting for Ridge and David Douglas High School. Correct. So the high school, when you count all of when you look at David Douglas High School, that does have an improvement. 1.2%, just looking at David Douglas, from last year to this year, they've upped their ADA 1.2%, and their chronic rate from last year to this year went down actually 3.9%, which is pretty great. But that's David Douglas High School. You're right, when this is monitoring all high school students.
Okay. I don't think we got the by school comparison.
No, I just kind of dug around and did that. I can send that to you if you want me to.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, this is some positive. Obviously, with attendance, we always want it higher. It's a struggle that we have, and it's a struggle that I can tell you our schools, counselor. It is a ton of work. We have a long way to go, but we haven't had this kind of improvement for a little bit. So it felt really good to be able to share with teams, because it's always nice when you do this kind of work to have some kind of positive. And so hopefully next year we can come to you with an even better percentage.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Are the are the students on the online academy being told about? I took classes that were online when I was in high school, and they were always felt like work at your own pace. So if I could log in for less days and get all my work done, I thought it was fine. No one ever said anything to me about attendance about my online classes. So I wouldn't be surprised that there are kids that are like, well, attendance is not important. I can do all my work. It's online. Are they being told that it's beneficial for them to log in, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that, Jose, but I totally hear what you're saying, that online does pose a little different environment for students when they are a little bit more at their own pace, particularly at secondary. So I'm not sure. I think we'd have to ask Principal Myers a little bit more to explain that. This is the first year that we've really kept, sorry, Ken, when you saw the DDOA numbers, this is the first year that we've tried to take that out and take a look at what it would look like. We used to combine that with the school, like at the elementary level where the school students may be dual enrolled in. And this year we decided to pull it out just to take a look and see what it looked like with a true DDOA attendance.
Yeah. In our model, there are online models that don't do, they're kind of just log on to anything at your own pace. That's not the model we have. The model we have has a district principal, district teachers, connections, relationships, access. So we are monitoring. And I don't know the answer as Andy. We could ask Shauna to come and present. She would love to. But here's what I would say and I would bet on. I would bet on as kids are entering into DOA, just knowing her, there's an intake process and they are told about attendance and communicate about attendance. Now I would also say that there's probably kids that would say, I didn't know about attendance, right? So I'm not disagreeing with that, but I just know Principal Myers well enough that I'm sure she's got an intake process to communicate in that. But again, we can follow.
Yeah, and she does. That I know she does, and it would be better. I wish she was here because she'd be able to explain it a lot better than me with the passion that she has in her program. So yeah, I don't know if there's any other questions about attendance. This is kind of our year-end sort of summary. I know it's very, very high level. If you have any other attendance questions, go ahead and pass it our way, and we'll try to get that to you.
Hey, I just want to say I really do appreciate the highlighting the improvement. We've seen some scary numbers over the years, and for everything our community's been through and the world's been through in the last 5 or 6 years, it's been incredible to see this positive upswing. And I thank you so much for highlighting it for us.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. When you're doing the work, and even if you see 0.1, and it is growth. It really is with the 10. Even though you saw, Elevate did a great job sharing their data. And, it does. When you look at it, you think, okay, what's a 1.6%? That's a pretty big increase in the attendance world. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Brooke?
Okay, and we do know, while Sandy's switching over, we do know there's a correlation from students, being in school and our academic outcomes because, students can't benefit from instruction that they don't receive. So, and we also know this issue is not just limited to David Douglas, it is a national, if you've been looking at some of the things that even come across the OSBA daily report, there's been a lot of talk about attendance, so there is a big focus on that. That being said, we're going to talk about some of our outcomes today with our reading measures and our math measures. So if you can go to the next. What we have here, I know this is a lot of information, but we're going to go over 3 different data sets with you today. And this is, I want to say it's for K-8 only. So I want to preface it with that. So the first data set we're going to go over are the district literacy goals that you set. Again, we want all students proficient readers by 3rd grade, ultimately, is what we would like. And then we're going to go over reading proficiency, what students are hitting their benchmarks, and then we're going to talk about math for K-8. So in each of these, if you click on that link, I'm going to go over overall K-5, 6, 8 data scores, but if you click on these reports, you can see them by grade level, and you'll see it varies by school. And I do want to thank Cameron Cross for putting those together for us. It's very clear with the school icons what happens there. So just want to make a point, you all have access to click and explore those data reports. Okay, next slide, please. So the first goal that we have is our district literacy goal has 2 parts. And the first part is students who come in the fall and they score well below benchmark on the beginning of the year assessment. And what we want them to do, they're coming in with skills that are below where we want them to be. We want them to make typical or ideally above typical growth because we want to accelerate learning for them. So that is our first goal. Are we accelerating learning if students are coming in really far below so that we can get them to benchmark by 3rd grade? And so you can see, again, this is all schools K-5, and obviously our goal here is we want 100% students making their typical or above typical growth. Where we ended this year as a district average is we landed at 56%. So we know we still have work to do, but we do have some notable progress that I did want to point out with each of our schools. And I'm not going to read all those scores there, but you can see we have different grade levels that are accelerating at different rates around that. And we also have different focal groups that are scoring higher than our district percentage. I know all of our elementary schools have data teams, literacy teams. They are all over this data. We have a lot of data meetings that go over these data points and then talk about what to do and what they are going to do and what their plans are. So the second part of this goal, if you go to the next slide, is okay, so students who come at the beginning of the year, they are at or above benchmark. They're coming in with the skills we want them to have at the beginning of the year. We want to maintain them, right? We don't want them to slide backwards throughout the year. So are we maintaining? And again, it's not the same test from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. It calibrates for grade level and where they should be. So again, our goal is 100%, that we maintain 100% of students. We ended up at 78% of students that we maintain. And again, you have some notable progress. For example, Earl Boyle's kindergarten maintained 92% of their kindergartners at or above grade level. This is the kind of progress. And you look at 4th grade, Mill Park, 100%. That's amazing. So shout out to all of our schools are able to do this. This is really super hard work. So also, and I should mention to you that this is cohort data. So this is students that started the year with us and also ended the year with us. So it doesn't count all of our students. We really just wanted to look at cohort data. Because what this tells us, it also tells us the strength of our core instruction, right? So we're looking at systems and what that means. So we want to look at that intact cohort group. So that is the literacy goal. Can you go to the next slide? So the second part of this is just K-5 reading proficiency. How many students are deemed proficient readers? So they hit their benchmark, they're right where we want them to be. What you have here is a range of percentages. So we test beginning, middle, and end of the year. So they could be a score here in the fall and then dip in the winter and then rebound in the spring. So this is the range at any time of the year. And so you could see we had a minimum proficiency of 29% to a maximum of 59% overall. But then you could see each of our schools and where they were at the beginning of the year for reading proficiency for students K-5 in the cohort and where they ended the year. We also included here just what our district growth is. We started, our average for district was 41%, and we moved from 41% to 47%. And then you could see schools that we just counted that made some notable progress in this work. If you dig into this report and you look at it by grade level, you'll see, schools rise to the top at different grade levels. So it looks very different there. And again, these are based on our universal screeners, which is Acadian's online learning, also known as DIBBLES, which is a lot of our reading foundational skills. So this data will look different maybe later on when you get our SBAC scores for 3rd grade. It is going to look different. They're assessing, this is about some of those, we want them to have automaticity and we want to take the burden off of students. So when they get to those higher depth of knowledge questions that are on SBAC, we've freed up that cognitive space. So they're measuring different things. Okay, next slide. Now we're going to move on to middle school. Our 6-8 proficiency. So again, these are students who scored at or above benchmark at the beginning, middle, and end of the year based on our screener. So you can see the ranges for each of the middle schools. Our growth, we started at 33% for middle school and we ended up with 43%. I want to say that this test is based on reading inventory. And we will no longer have reading inventory next year. It has been sunsetted. It is now owned by HMH, and they are transitioning to a new assessment. The issue with that is when we got into reading inventory, we paid up front and we were to have the licenses for perpetuity. Am I saying that right? So we paid up front and then we never had to pay for licenses again. I think HMH is saying this is not very profitable for us, right? So they're sunsetting this assessment. They're going to a new assessment. We do not have funds to purchase the new assessment. Some of the money that we have in our federal grants, I think as Ken has shared with you, we pay for these out of like Title I, our federal grants, those dollars are going down, and we've shifted some of those fundings to help cover staffing costs. So this is something I do want to put on our radar just because it doesn't feel real good that we will not have this data point to share with you next year. So all we will have then for middle school is SBAC scores and maybe looking at grades. But we really want something more that is going to assess some of the discrete skills and the reading proficiency. So I do want to preface it with that. But with reading proficiency, Alice Ott made notable growth with 14 percentage point increase. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now we're moving on to math. And math is iReady. This is our very first year implementing this assessment. It's tied to our curriculum. So this is baseline data. And again, we want to, this is straight proficiency. How many students met or exceeded the benchmark in math on our first round with this test? You can see the range of our schools. You can see West Palhurst started the year at 4% of students being proficient. And then the highest school that we got was Cherry Park with 50%. But you can see the growth for all of the schools listed there. And then you can see our district growth trend also increased from 8% to 33%. And again, called out some of our schools that made some notable progress. If you look at Menlo Park and Cherry Park at 35 and 34 percentage point increase, I know they've been very focused on this work. Okay, so next slide. Here we are at math proficiency. Also, for the first time ever, we have a K-8 curriculum, which is really exciting for us to have that continuity and to have the same assessment. So again, first time they've taken the assessment in middle school. And our range started out with 7% proficient at Ron Russell to the maximum at 30% at Alice Ott and Floyd Light. We're hand in hand together here. So our district growth in middle school was from 12% to 28%. So we have some notable progress there. The visuals, I think, are really helpful in kind of seeing some of the disparities from the schools and work that we still need to do. Okay, next slide. So one of the things that we also measure is the depth of implementation of our curriculum, right? Because what we're trying to see, as I mentioned earlier, we want to look at our student proficiency, but we also want to start looking at the health of our core and what we can do with our instruction. So these scores are based on just a teacher survey. It's just self-reported data from teachers. As we promised you with when we were starting math that we weren't going to let our foot off the pedal with reading. And so our HMH usage for K-5 increased, again, self-reported, significantly from 45.6% of teachers last year to 84.2% this year. And we're still working on that through development of curriculum maps and pacing guides and coaching, just to see what's available for teachers and how to differentiate instruction. StudySync, which is our middle school reading curriculum, increased from 28.6% to 70.6% this year. For iReady, first year of our K-8 curriculum, your first year is always a really challenging year. It's overwhelming. There's lots of learning. You don't know what you don't know. Sometimes we want to do what we did before, but teachers were working really hard, and they indicated 52.7% indicated that they do thorough or advanced usage of the curriculum. That's what we want to see, and we want to keep seeing that work trend upwards. So what is the work that we're going to do? You can go to the next slide. because again, there's continued work. Before I get into this, you'll see at the bottom there, pending funding. These are our dreams. This is our wish list. Again, as I said, we pay for a lot of this work through Title II, which is for professional learning, and some of that those funds have been shifted to cover staffing. So we have to be really creative in how we continue to support the work, but we're passionate about it, and we will. So if you go to the next slide. So you can, and I'm not going to read all this for you, but I do want to just call out a couple things that we're doing. For elementary language arts, we implemented ECRI. For K2, we've had a lot of success for that, and that is direct instruction on some of those phonics, phonemic awareness, dictation skills. And our 3rd through 5th teachers were saying, but what about us? What do we get? There isn't an ECRI component for 3rd through 5th. So Francesca Altman has been working with our 3rd through 5th on doing foundational skills for them and bringing that into our secondary, because our data shows that our students need it. We're also really excited that we got the early literacy grant. That will definitely help with some of our professional learning needs. That focus, however, is primarily on K2. It's going to allow us to continue our ECRI training that we've been starting and do individual coaching at each of our schools, and each grade level will get individual coaching to deepen our implementation and understanding of what that looks like. I would love to invite you, if any of you, I don't know if you guys are excited about ECRI like we are, but we love to get you in our classrooms and watch it in action. We have some magical teachers. There's a lot they have to know with implementation and routines, and it's beautiful when you see the kids doing it. So just let us know, and we'll get you in some classrooms. We also were able to hire. Oh yeah, do you want to say your piece? Oh, okay. Great.
What does ECRI stand for? What is the acronym?
Enhanced Core Reading Instruction.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If we ever use acronyms and we don't say what they mean, please let us know. We were also, with the early literacy grant, able to hire 2 coaches, instructional coaches, that will really continue to support the schools, the implementation, and all of this work. So you'll see that Mill Park has been getting some really good growth scores, and so we were lucky to hire Julia Traylor, who will continue the work that she has started there. We'll continue to support Mill Park, but also can take some of that work district-wide that they've been doing with small group instruction and differentiation. And then we also hired Ashley East, who's just a phenomenal teacher at Ventura Park, who's also been getting really great results. So we're very excited to bring them on board. We also have essential agreements, and this is around clarity around what should a literacy block look like, what should I be doing as the teacher, what should we see the students doing. So we have that for reading, and so it's continually to define those and implement those, and they're co-created with teachers. And we just started that work with math, was it last week or the week before? We had, I don't even know how many math teachers here. We had K-12 math teachers coming together. We had like 50 maybe. I don't know. There were a lot coming together for like a week. Coming together, we did some professional learning together. We mapped the curriculum, because the first year, we can't map the curriculum until we know it, until we implement it. So we have our adoption year, and then we have our first year of implementation, like you just got to try it. And then we come together and say, what are we going to do in David Douglas? We start mapping. These are the lessons that we need to do. These are the ones maybe we can skip. This is the vocabulary we want to teach. These are the assessments we should give. And all of that is co-created with our teachers. And then the teachers will go back in August, and they will share those with their grade levels and do the professional learning. So we're doing that work in math as well. So we got a lot going on at elementary. And then middle school, if you can flip to the next slide. Again, still continuing the work in middle school as well with Study Sync. We don't have the foundational skills we're working, but we're still working on professional learning and understanding the curriculum and how to bring that to life and how we can weave in some of those foundational skills. We're continuing with our learning and hopefully doing learning walks where we can get teachers out and seeing teachers who are having high success with curriculum implementation. Math, we're launching the curriculum maps, and again, we still want to do some learning around number sense, and again, do learning walks if we can afford it, but that is a really high level of professional learning that we want to implement. The next slide is high school. We don't have high school data because we don't do those assessments. So really you look at grades, but we didn't want you to think we don't work with high school because we do as well. So there's still some work here that we're, just so that you can see the work that's happening in high school as well. Really excited about some of the math work groups that we're doing with algebra fundamentals and trying to align that more with integrated 1, 2, 3 and bringing that together so we have more continuity of services and we get students in algebra fundamentals up to grade level math. So that being said, I think the next slide is questions. And I know, Heather, you had mentioned, do we have last year's data to compare to this year's data? And I don't have that today, but we'll get that for you so that you can see a comparison from last year to this year and we can look at those cohort groups.
Thank you. I was curious about the usage of curriculum. Was part of the questions of like what caused it to increase or not be used as much, for the example of math? Is it just because of the new purchase of new curriculum, or is there more than that?
Yeah, we just left it, the answers that they gave on that. So the question that they were asked, let me get to that slide, were like none, I didn't utilize any of the resources this year. Basic, I taught some lessons from the curriculum or administered some of the assessments. Thorough, I taught the majority of the lessons and administered the majority of the assessments. Or advanced, I taught the majority of the identified lessons and all the assessments. So from there, and then they could write comments about why or why not, and we can start looking at that data to figure out, okay, how do we support? What does that look like? And if we start seeing trends or patterns in the data, to say like, oh, say that 6th grade all said basic, we can start to unpack that and we can start to figure out, okay, what do we need to do? What is the barrier? What does that look like? So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else have questions? Yeah.
I think there's so much information. We just.
I know that was a lot.
Yeah. It's not that I wouldn't say I don't have questions. I just say thank you for the wonderful job, and I think there's just so much to process right now. I'll have to hold off, maybe ask you at a future date.
Oh, yeah, anytime. And I encourage you in all your spare time to get in and try and look at those individual grade level reports, because it is fascinating just to see the differences in grade levels and how things shift, which is really helpful for the teachers or the principals too, as they're looking at where they lend support in their schools and what they want to do as they're developing their school improvement plans.
I guess the only, just one question came to mind when you were reading through that. How's the new English and math curriculums, how's the adoption process been going? Are you seeing, that our teaching staff is really kind of embracing it, or what's
Implementation, curriculum implementation is always really hard, because I think some of the things that you'll hear is, first of all, I want to say there's so much research that comes out right now around the importance of high quality instructional materials, and you guys stop me because I can talk about this for a really long time, as Ken and the cabinet knows. The implementation of high quality instructional materials, right? And when teachers don't have that, they hunt for them online or resources, and then there's so much data that shows it's not meeting the grade level standard, or we're getting easier assignments. And one of the biggest complaints I think that we hear with curriculum implementation is it's too hard for my students. It's too hard. So then our question for us is, how do we scaffold up, right? Because we don't want to lower the bar. We want to get students to grade level standards, and we say this is what grade level looks like, right? So even if a student is a non-reader, how do we access that curriculum? And this is where our coaches, our student achievement specialists come into play, because they support teachers in doing that work. So that is one of the biggest barriers, is sometimes it's too hard for our students. And then sometimes not knowing all the other resources that are available within the curriculum.
Well, that kind of lends to a follow-up question. I mean, say a child has some sort of barrier to learning, and they've been behind for like 2 or 3 years, and they're hitting a curriculum that's kind of meant to meet them at the level of that grade. Like, what sort of scaffolding? Because something I've noticed in the past is there is like a core segment of the kids that just never get caught. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do know
how does
that
the scaffolding meet the kids that are like 2 or 3 years behind?
And we do know if students are not proficient, that third grade benchmark is there for a reason, because we know that students who don't hit that by third grade, it's a lot harder for them to catch up over time, right? So some of the scaffolding can look like, sometimes like knowing what you're assessing. If I'm assessing comprehension, do they have to read it aloud, or could I read it aloud and know if do they have listening comprehension? Sometimes we do the small group instruction and we still do the same skill. We're still focusing on cause and effect, but there's just a lot more scaffolding, maybe sentence frames to help students like jumpstart their thinking, like just little tricks, that we can, but it's not about this skill's too hard, they're functioning here, so I'm gonna stay here. And it's challenging, like, our teachers work really hard when you think about how many kids they have in their classroom and trying to meet the needs of all of their students. iReady is great because it will group students for you and say, these students have like needs, you know what I mean? And here's what you can be working on with them. So all of that is super helpful.
That is cool. Thank you so much.
Of course.
I have a couple questions. Do we still have the dashboard that Cameron made where you can look at in goal 1 for your literacy, the well below students? Can we see the difference between those who are making typical growth and those who are making above typical growth?
You do still have access to the dashboard. And let me go back. I thought I linked it, but if I didn't,
I didn't look.
Okay, but
not
yes,
you. Yeah,
I may not have, but I will send it to you. You guys all have access to our dashboard, and you can play around and get in there and look.
Okay, great. Because I'm really curious always about the kids who are well below typical's not going to catch them up.
It's not going to catch them up. We really want to make that accelerated above typical growth. Yeah.
Okay. When you said we're going to lose reading inventory, right?
Yes.
So Dibbles goes up to 8, right? Can we not use Dibbles as a measure for up through 8th grade?
That's a good question. I'm not, the reason we wanted to ideally stick with HMH is because the assessment is linked to Read 180 and System 44, which we still use in some of our middle schools curriculum, right? So it's always nicer when you have an assessment that aligns with the curriculum. But we could consider that if it would be better than nothing, right? Yeah, and it is cheaper. We used to, back in the day, we got Dibbles for $1 per student. Now we pay like almost $8 per student. Yeah. Per year.
Dibbles is, I know people think of it as much lower level, but it's more differentiated in targeting or understanding where the weaknesses are, no?
Yes. It helps you, where they are. So it helps us understand who needs more support.
And what types, right?
Yeah, and what types, yes.
Okay. And then one more question. So previously with math inventory, when we were looking at the measures like of growth, we were looking at meeting end of year math targets. But this is similar to Dibbles, in which we're looking at fall versus middle versus spring. Winter, I mean?
Yeah, so let me look at this. It's a web-based, I had to write this down because Rochelle is the best at this and she's on summer break. Let's see. It's adaptive, meaning that the difficulty of the questions adjusts based on students' responses, right? If they're getting all the questions right, they're going to give them harder questions that might put them in another grade level. We really want to see like what grade level they're performing at. So it will adjust, and then it covers the 4 math domains: number operations, algebra and algebraic thinking, geometry and measurement, and data.
So a student that's at grade level by end of year in whatever grade level, would we expect that they would be coming in? I mean, I know every student's different, so this is not like everybody's answer, but if I'm at grade level, end of 7th grade, would we be expecting those children to be at grade level come 8th grade for at beginning of year assessment?
That's what we would love, but they also might throw in like 8th grade, you know what I mean, to see some 8th grade standards. Where are you performing, because if you're proficient at end of year at 7th grade standards, how are you doing for 8th grade standards, and what does that look like? So, and we also know there's some summer learning loss, but yes, ideally we would love to maintain that. And that would be a good data point that we could pull. The students that ended proficient, and then how did they do in their fall assessment? Where did they score?
Because the answer would be, are they getting near, year after year, are we getting closer to proficiency?
Yeah, we can look at that too.
And thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Brooke.
Thank you, guys.
And Andy earlier. And we're moving on to our next agenda item, technology conversation, cell phone use in schools.
Yeah, so in, the discretion of the board, I know we're behind time here, so whether we make up some time here, or this could even be something that might be tabled a little bit, but I'll leave that to Heather. But the long story short, you can see it's not an action item. What happened is in our meeting agenda, where the board leadership says, hey, this is what we want to see, and went through it, one of the conversations and questions came up was cell phones, and many of you might have seen the articles that have been published. OSBA sends articles about different districts that have said no cell phones in schools. North Clackamas, I know, is one. There's others farther away from us. Grant High School is another one. So I think really what we talked about is just an open conversation. That did this catch your attention, board? Do you have ideas about it, wonderings? And really, I think I'm handing it over to Heather, because Heather's the one that really wanted to kind of have a conversation. And it's really a conversation then we can move forward, possibly research, possibly not. I can tell you, the question at hand, if we talk to, like, for example, I think North Clackamas just did middle and high. I can tell you with our secondary administrators, if I ask them and have asked them, do cell phones impact learning and culture? The answer is absolutely yes, right? I will quickly, before I hand it over to Heather or the entire board, and Derek might help me here as well, because we've done a little research, is what North Clackamas is using, and I believe Grant is using, just it's a product, it's from a company called Yonder. And what it is a kind of a wetsuit type material. When kids show up, they have a bag, they check out, they put the cell phone in the bag. There's a machine that literally locks the bag so they can't access it, but the kids still have their phone, right? They have it with them. And then as they leave, they unlock the bag, take the phone out, and that's the product they use. We have actually been in contact with that company before. We've kind of done a mini cost, kind of just wondering, because the high school specifically have asked about it before. We haven't gotten anywhere with that, but with all that said, that was the thought here, is just, hey, it caught at least board leadership's attention, and the rest of the board, did it catch your attention? And maybe there's a conversation there.
Yeah, I've been paying attention specifically since Mount Scott, which is an alternative school in PPS, because they piloted, I think they received the bags for free, these Yonder bags, and so that's been the main one I've been watching, because it's a high school and because it's alternative school, kind of to see a year in and kind of the feedback on it. So I was excited to see the conversation come out about that. And like Ken said, I've heard from lots of, especially secondary principals, that say, it's prevents learning, but also I think the amount of behavioral kind of conversations around cell phones, I would just like to, I think because it's summertime too, talk about, whether or not we want to think about changes, talking to the administrators, thinking about cost. And then I know, like, the bags cost, I think, $30 a bag on about, is what I read. So thinking about whether that cost would be absorbed by individuals or by the district, I just kind of curious about having this conversation and who we would want to talk to about all of this.
I will say I've also been reading a lot about this, and one thing that stood out to me a lot, and I don't know if this is the same for every school, but they did a few anonymous surveys of the students, and the results were said to be surprising, because most of the students also wanted this, because they talked about the phones being so harmful, and social media, and how they have to feel like they have to pay attention to it all the time, and little things happen during the day that take their attention away. So it wasn't just the administrators. When given an anonymous survey, all of a sudden a majority of the students also said they would be okay with something like this. So, I feel like if the administrators want it, the teachers want it, and the students want it, the only issue is the cost, right? So we should at least look into it.
During one of the tech feedback sessions that I put together and took a wonderful leadership role in, we had a high school student who was one of our main respondents at the first one, and she said something that really struck me, kind of caught me by surprise. She said that she has to maintain, like, multiple personas because she has to have her like personal human being persona, but then there's also a lot of stress that she feels maintaining her digital persona, which is completely like a different person than her personal persona because it's like glamorized and it's got to be the perfect look and it's got to be this thing. It was really striking. I wasn't expecting to have that conversation with a student. I think she's a junior this year in high school. That really caught me by surprise, and it just gave me a lot to think about, you know, how stressful that must be. I mean, personally, I've been off social media for a few years, and I should be on it because I'm a politician, but it drives me crazy. I mean, I also personally lock my kids' phones during the day, which drives them crazy, but I think it's really important to their learning that they don't have access to their, you know, pocket computers all day. So it's, yeah, first time I was exposed to this concept too, Heather, was Derek when you wrote the tech policy, and we got that pretty strong feedback from our high school dean staff, who's now going to be our principal this next year, that this is something that is really important to them. And I've also visited classrooms on campus where teachers have gotten inventive and they created storage cubbies that have charging stations so that when the kids come into class, they put your phone in the cubby on a charger. So they like the charger part. But the feedback from the kids in that class was how much more relaxed they were, not having to like manage both things at the same time. So I think it's definitely a conversation worth having. I'd love to get some community feedback, you know.
Yeah, I feel like there's just been so many changes in technology. Like, you know, when we look at the grand scheme of time and as humans, like we've had like cell phones for really little. You know, I offhandedly was talking to Heather about this before this meeting and saying how, you know, even, you know, being one of the younger board members, like even when I was in middle school, I had like a flip phone that you only really texted on. And then that drastically changed by the end of my time in high school. And now, you know, kids like who are like babies, like, you know, are grabbing onto their parents' phones. Like, you know, we see that attachment to technology. And I feel for that student who said that about dual personalities because it is different. You know, there's a different environment or feeling to the internet that, you know, I think we definitely don't deal with or haven't dealt with in education, like ourselves as students, right? Like that's not something that we confronted. And so it's new. And so I think talking about this, looking about what the possibility is, and how that would look like, because there's also, you know, I would want to talk about what would the capacity on staffing, like who would staff these things, like what are those logistical questions along with the price, right? Like, is there, you know, could Yonder work with us similarly? You know, what is it that we can partner and find opportunities? Because, you know, we definitely want to make sure that we're doing what's best, and that's part of the equation.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is absolutely we can definitely follow up in a number of fronts. First and foremost, we can specifically talk, and it's really, I think some of our elementary principals would say it's great there too, to be quite honest with you, but I think I'm going to start with just the conversation specifically with middle school within the next week, really kind of connecting with them about, you know, where are they at on this? What are they thinking around it? I'm very confident of what the high school would say because they were really in front of this and have already explored it. So that's one, we can kind of rally that conversation together to come up with some of that process. What if, you know, dreaming, what if this could happen? Are you guys prepared, and gals and teams and folks? And then from there, one, and then two is we can re-establish a connection with Yonder and have a little more formal conversation about what is the cost? What does it look like? Are there any grants? Is there, and we've already done that. Derek has done that specifically and got a little cost, but, you know, we can do it in kind of a little more serious conversation and just see, right? And then we can come back with some details and information, and it doesn't have to be all the way to the next board meeting. I can keep the board updated. If something seems like it's moving fast, I'll definitely let you know. I think the biggest red flag, unfortunately, right now is cost. My understanding, one of our neighboring districts, it was about a $300,000 bill. That's a bigger district than us, so I don't think that's it. Derek, I don't know if you remember the rough number when they talked to you or you talked to them. If not, it's fine.
Yeah, So for the high school only, it was in the neighborhood of about $70,000. 70.
70, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for the high school.
Yeah.
I was in contact with them just earlier this week. We have a pretty active email thread going, so we can get more formal quotes if people are interested in that. You pay for the bags as one part of it. You pay for they call them bases. So you have to make a decision about how many bases you'd want to purchase, and so that's just as kids are leaving points where they can go unlock the Yonder case. So, depending on, they have a recommendation based on, this many students, one per sort of thing, but those are pretty expensive. It's a magnetic locking mechanism. And there's lots of other logistics, I think, to think through. You can go online and you can find lots of information about how kids have figured out how to beat the Yonder case as well. So not to be a wet blanket on the conversation, but I just want to share with you, there's lots of those stories out there too. Kids can bring second cell phones that they don't put in the Yonder bag and figure out how to use those. So there's it's a big investment and it's a big training component. So just want to make sure we bring all the evidence to that conversation as we go forward. But
yeah, I was going to ask you, Derek, what do you personally think of this idea, from the techno, from...
Yeah, well, I think that we need teacher perspective on it. I know I've heard a lot, as you have, from the high school about the distractions that cell phones are causing in terms of teaching and learning and behavior, and I think we've heard fairly heavily from the middle schools about the behavior component of cell phones as well. So there's clearly an issue there. I'm not convinced that Yonder bags are the answer to it. I know that other districts are trying that out and doing it, and they're having some success with it. I just don't think we've investigated that fully enough to know that if that investment is going to pay off. I don't think it's a situation where you have an upfront cost and then you've got them for a while. You got to deal with loss, just like every other piece of technology. Are the students responsible for that? The families, do they pay for the Yonder bag if it goes missing or whatever? And there's just a lot we haven't thought through from a policy standpoint. But I'll start by contacting them. If you'd like, we can have them come in and give you a formal presentation too. They've offered that. Or I can just collect information and Ken and I can send it to you.
Can I ask you one more thing?
Yeah.
Are there any, if we wanted to restrict cell phones on school campuses specifically, are there any other options outside of Yonder? Is Yonder kind of our best?
I haven't actually. I haven't looked to see if there's anything else on the market right now that does what they do similarly. I haven't heard of any other districts that are doing something like that with another product. But I'll spend some time looking around. And
I was thinking too, or just maybe just restricted use in class or something.
Right.
Just, you know what I mean?
There's a lot of that out there. Just a couple months ago, I was listening to OPB driving into work, and they had a superintendent from somewhere mid-California having kind of a bit of a debate with, I think, somebody from the Midwest, where one district had said, we're going to go all-out ban maybe Yonder cases or something like that, and the other district was saying, we're going to actually try to embrace this differently and use it more deliberately as a learning tool. So there's some big philosophical conversations to have, and you're having them, and certainly hearing from the community and teachers, I think, is an important part of it too. But I think the answer to that is people are taking lots of different approaches to this. I'm hearing more recently, like you are, about folks that are going down the road of we're banning them, or we're using Yonder cases, which means they're used in a limited fashion. You can open your cases at lunchtime, things like that, but then they got to be locked back up, and everything in between. So,
well, thank you. Yeah.
And I know the latest article, and I didn't call to follow up. The latest article, and it's the same article that went through, I believe, OSBA, so I'm sure you saw it. But it talked about ODE as well, and talked about the state legislature even possibly weighing in on this for schools specifically. I believe Senator Dembro said he was planning on this cycle it would stay as local control. But it was just fascinating to me that in the article, it was definitely this could be a state policy at some point that phones aren't going to be in school, or that's how I read it anyway, so it just caught my attention. It was interesting. Yeah, but either way, we will kind of follow up and do some homework and get back and keep this conversation going. Except the cost, I think, is going to be a barrier, but we'll just start the conversations and keep the board informed.
Thank you.
I I'm sorry. One
last thing.
All right, Gabriella, I just as the closest person to, the student group population here, I think, on our board, and someone who's actually used a smartphone in school, I would love to kind of, hear your feedback over time and your thoughts around this, and it'd be really interesting to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, totally. I think for the sake of time, we can table this discussion, but I do want to hear more from, what would it look like? What are the logistics? And we can talk about it another time. This is just the start. So there's no pressure to get everything out today. Unless there's anything else, moving on to Enterprise Zone program presentation. Pat, take it away.
Okay. So the Enterprise Zone program is where eligible businesses that locate or expand in an enterprise zone may receive an abatement from local property taxes for a 3 to 5 year period. So this is a zone where they're looking to do economic development and give an incentive for that. Qualifying companies can automatically receive a 3-year abatement. They may request to extend that period of abatement by 1 or 2 additional years, so 4 to 5. They must meet specific criteria regarding job creation and retention, minimum wages and benefits. Sometimes there's also community engagement and workforce development requirements. The property tax abatement does only apply to those new investments, so not the existing tax base. Next slide. We do have several, and there's a map that you can click on in the state of Oregon. We want to go to the next page. So this is where we kind of got pinged a little while ago. And House Bill 2009 passed in 2023 established that companies who are authorized for that extended abatement period pay a school support fee starting in 2027. This fee may be from 15 to 30% of the total abated taxes on the new investments in those extended abatement years, so those years 4 and 5 only, not for the first 3. The enterprise zone manager in each school district must agree on the fees. The school board must set the fee by resolution. The school support fee is counted as local revenue in the state school fund. So there's not necessarily a net gain for a school district. It just basically increases the local amount of revenues in the statewide school fund formula. Our enterprise zone manager is Prosper Portland. Now, under this House bill, districts technically are responsible for collecting, assessing the school support fees, and making any payments back for any errors or omissions on the fees. Prosper Portland and we kind of came together with East County, Gresham, and they all kind of talked with the districts here. Prosper has agreed to manage the invoicing of the fees at no cost. They are recommending a fee of 15%. And one of the reasons why this is getting pushed, we kind of went 2027, that's a ways off. But one of the reasons this is getting brought forward is that they can't set any new zones, or have been advised legally that they shouldn't set any new zones until they actually have those rates set. So that's why they're coming to us going, hey, when are you going to do that? And so if you have any follow-up questions, that was kind of a brief presentation. Again, this is kind of new for both Ken and I, and we're learning about it. So we can get some answers for you, but we would end up bringing a resolution for you to approve a rate for anything that would fall in a zone that a company would then have an extended abatement period.
So I sent an update earlier around this specifically, probably maybe 2-3 weeks ago. It's been a while now, kind of. And again, our intention is to bring a resolution for your consideration next month. What we wanted to do this month is introduce it. As Pat said, I can tell you, Pat knows more than me, and she said both of us, but it's all brand new. So what we wanted to do this time is introduce it, start to get questions. I'm guessing that 90% of the questions you asked this evening, we won't necessarily know, but we want to get those answers to you before next time so you can make a decision and kind of go forward with either in the consideration one way or the other. Also, there might be more research and other questions from now until our next board meeting, we understand as well. But just so you know, that's what our hope was tonight, is introduce it, get some information, start fielding questions, so you feel comfortable with us at least to bring a resolution for your consideration, kind of a thing. Yeah.
Well, I guess my first question is really obvious. If the rate is between 15 and 30, why are we going in at 15? Because that's what they're suggesting, and that's the lowest we could ask for. Is there a reason to not ask for more?
I don't remember their reasoning, to be honest. I'll have to go look at it. I know that there are criteria in the law that you can't ask for a 0.5%, and there's certain number. It's just a quirky little law and so I'll go back and look at my notes on that.
Okay, just think we should maybe ask for more if we need more money. Also, the other one question might be a little harder to answer, but they're also proposing a tax increment financing district for our area, and how does this play with that? Because it feels like it's based on the same taxes, so we'd have to see how they're going to talk to each other. But they're both Prosper Portland is behind both of them, so they should know.
But my understanding is that because this is what your bullet is here, because it's counted as local revenue, it may just completely be a wash regardless. So it wouldn't matter what rate we set.
So when it comes to the state school fund, it's going to get counted as part of your local revenue, just like the rest of your property taxes. And so it's just going to get offset in the formula. What the state was looking at is how can we make school funding look larger. That's my personal opinion. I don't know about Ken, but.
So why would we have an opinion? What's the value for us to even weigh in?
Well, I think the bigger conversation that I have been, because we did ask that, and really it's a wash and why and how, but really what's the purpose of it? The purpose of it is to incentivize businesses and economic development within our area, within our district. So that's, I think, the bigger, the opinion from the school board is by doing something like this, it's going to help our local economy and revenue. And again, I don't know that I'm the one to speak to this, but that's how I would answer it, and that's what I think that they would answer it as well.
Yeah, and that makes me understand 15, but what you're saying also makes me question more how it interact with the TIF district, because that's all about having those extra taxes go up every year and taking that money and reinvest in infrastructure and things in our community. So if they're then going to give them tax abatements, then how is TIF going to make any money? So we can't really have both things. Or I want to know how.
Yeah, understand the question. Yeah, and I didn't even think about the TIF, and I've been involved in that and been staying abreast of that. So that is, I don't know how the two marry. I don't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering the same question because I just realized that we had a TIF recently because I talked to the person who manages it, and I would wonder how that overlaps or doesn't. Is there any more questions for Pat? It seems like we have a lot of unanswerable questions, but when you all have some answers, hopefully by next time, and then if you don't, or if they're still in the process by next month, still want to know, where we're at.
Yeah, we'll try to get answers by next month.
Thank you. Next up in our agenda is board policy second reading. This is an action item, and we will be discussing policy DJC, fiscal management, bidding requirements, deleting policy DJC, fiscal management, bidding requirements, adding that one, and then policy DJCA, fiscal management, personnel services, contracts, and special procurements. I don't know if anyone had anything to add. I know, Erin, you're on the committee. So I don't know if you wanted to start us off with anything, if anyone had any other questions.
I would just say this is a
Moving on.
purely procedural policy reflecting direct change in Oregon law, and nothing that I have any sort of hesitation about.
Alrighty. So if none, then we can go to, does anyone have a motion?
Let's see if I can say this right. So I'd like to make a motion to first delete policy DJC, fiscal management bidding requirements. Also delete policy DJCA, fiscal management, personal services contracts, and special procurements, and replace them or add in policy DJC, fiscal management bidding requirements in its new form.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved in second. Let's vote, starting with Barrow.
Aye.
Saldana Lopez, aye.
Franklin, aye.
Gilmore Georgeson, aye.
All right, has been motioned and seconded and passed. Thank you all. So now moving on with our bond update.
Sure. So on the CTE Center, we are still waiting for the permit. I did get some additional forms at the time I wrote this. I also got some additional forms earlier today. So hopefully, once we get the forms all figured out that the city keeps sending with revisions, we will get that permit moving. It seems like what I'm hearing is we've been going through, we did submit the plans way back when in January. We've been meeting with them for a substantial amount of time. I know there was some question about, oh, we haven't submitted the plans. The plans have been submitted. We've done multiple meetings with the city. They seem to be kind of going back to things that maybe they should have asked at other meetings. So we're not really sure what that's about, but hopefully we'll hear a little bit more tomorrow, early Monday. So Gilbert Heights, Alisat, Gilbert Park, those are all permitted. Fire alarm is finishing up. Bike path pads are poured out. Framing's completed. HVAC is waiting for some responses on questions that the installer has. Alisat, they're removing the asphalt, working through some irrigation challenges with some installation of the lights around the area. Things, sometimes the things on the plans aren't exactly where the plans show. So that's always fun. Contractor is working on curbing in the parking areas, and there may be some additional curb work needed as they're going in and looking and seeing there's a little more decay and aging of the curbing. So the roof is in the tear-off process. The project's on schedule. Gilbert Heights office is demolished. The concrete contractor is scheduling the pouring. Tree protection needs to go back through a re-inspection. We had to do some additional erosion control. So clearly tree protection is a theme in the last year or so. The house demolition permit's issued, and we're waiting on the contractor to schedule that demolition. Cherry Park, we hear a few snags with the project. We do have an issue where the main contractor has not been paying the subcontractors on time. So legal's been involved. The surety bondholder folks are involved. So we've been pushing on the contractor to get everybody paid timely. We did have one subcontractor send me a notification of walking off the job because they hadn't gotten paid. So we got that resolved, I think. And so hopefully we will get that moving and stick on time. It might be a little delayed, just depending on how all of that plays out. North Palhurst, the permits issued, construction started. We did have a little bit of an issue. You remember I brought back some attic abatement that needed to be done. Once they got up there to abate, they found that some of the insulation couldn't be reached from the inside of the attic. They would have actually had to do a tear out in the ceiling to reach it. And so what was recommended was to encapsulate those areas, and then we'll make a note later on when they actually do a pull off of the roof they can, later on, then they can go back in and abate those areas, but we wanted to save them off as much as we could. So that's what's going on there. We're working on intercoms in that school, so you might have noticed in the purchasing approvals, we did increase the base contract. We are having the main contractor go back and do some of that intercom cabling and cabling work, whereas the folks that are doing the parts and smarts, as Adam would say, will come back later and put those pieces in. Playgrounds, those are all in process. West Palhurst should be done by the end of the month. Gilbert Heights, Menlo, and Ventura all starting in July. Gilbert Park starts the end of July. We did have an issue with one of the features. The vendor couldn't get all the pieces, and so we extended the timeline a little bit. We still plan on those being done, but we're negotiating as the installer said that it would be mid-September, and we said negative, we need August, so we're working through that. I will say Christy did a great job of getting additional funding through Build Up Oregon, and so all of those playgrounds are funded between the ESSER grant and Build Up Oregon. Yay. Deerdorf, deconstruction's still ongoing. So one of these days, all those buildings will be down. So that'll be a great day for us. We won't have neighbors upset, and we won't have as much stuff up there, hopefully, to provide a nuisance for folks to come and engage in. Bond Oversight Committee is meeting on the 15th, and we'll present a board update next month.
Pat, will you also give a quick update? I know it's not as much bond as it is related to checks and the, I guess, phishing or the scamming.
You want me to talk about that?
Well, we don't have to give all the names, but just an idea of.
So we did have a phishing incident, and we are noticing several coming through after that particular one. We had someone present themselves through an email as a vendor, asking to change their W-9 address. What they also asked to change was their TIN number, so their taxpayer ID number. I have a new person in purchasing who processed that. We then got a request for, hey, we would like to set up for ACH payment. And my AP clerk went, oh, okay. But then they asked a few questions that were odd, and they were like, well, why are they asking that? And so I happened to be there, and I said, well, wait a minute. And she shared, well, I think they just changed their address. I said, well, let's go double check that, because we had just issued the check on Friday. So what ended up happening is we pulled the check from the check box, we put a stop payment on it, but the fraudsters tried to cash the check in Ohio. Yeah. So I ended up calling the contractor, and the contractor said, nope, we did not send you that. That is not, because the email address was pretty close. They've had a different corporate name before. And so it looked close, but each of the emails was just a little bit different in the address. So in the last about week and a half or so, we are noticing we had 2 or 3 more, and then we had RNC management let us know that one of the other contractors, they had gotten a ping that said, hey, what is our last payment going to be? And, when can we expect the payment? And, I'd like to sign up for ACH. And so those seems to be the big things, is changing their W-9 and asking for ACH payment. So at this time, there's no funds lost. I'm having trouble reporting it to PPB because I keep getting hung up on the non-emergency line. I did submit it through the FBI website because it is multiple states involved. So that's been a little bit of fun. So we've raised up our awareness and also our practices, And so basically myself or the financial systems manager has to sign off on a W-9 change. And then we also are looking at those ACHs, and then one of us is actually making the phone call to verify with the company, with a second person at the company. So we're doing that on both ends of the process now.
Thanks for catching that. Not like you didn't need more things to be
No,
managing.
but that was a close call.
That is a close
That
call.
was a very close
Yeah,
call.
really.
And so we just stepped things up and retrained staff. We do have a few new staff. Yay. We still need some more. But yeah, people are just, taking advantage of situations. And I'm not sure if they're watching, because there's a lot of plan centers that when you post out bids,
right,
they'll see that and they'll glom onto it, and then they'll say, hey, I want to post your bid so that we get more people. For that piece of it, it's valid, but I'm not sure then if the fraudsters are looking at it going, oh, they awarded, because they'll come back and say, who did you award it to? We want to let people know. And that's public information that we have to provide. But yeah, they, I think somehow the fraudsters are seeing that through those and going, okay, so let's figure out how we can access that.
That's scary. Well, thank you.
Probably more information than I should have shared.
Thank you. It caught me when I was taking a bite. But thank you, Pat, for your report. Next is reflections and public comment. And I know that I spoke on this a little bit, like right after public comment, but, wanted an opportunity for folks here, like we usually would.
I guess I'll say something. I just wanted to first acknowledge that the decision we made is not an easy one for the community, and we knew it wouldn't be. It was not a decision I think anyone took lightly. And as the newest board member, I kind of had a different perspective because I came in the middle, and I didn't see the beginnings and had to be caught up. So I really only had what was in front of me to make the decision. So I didn't make assumptions. I went based on actions and decisions taken by the principal, and that's what I based my decision on. And while difficult, I do think that we could all grow from this. So I stand by the decision. I'd be happy to talk to anyone who was hurt by it. That was not the intention. We just wanted to make it a safer place for the students. Thank you.
Yeah, I've had a couple of worried staff members talk to me, and what I told them was this is a long process full of a lot of difficult decisions. It wasn't like something we made really quickly. It's almost been 2 years, I think, since this first came to our attention, and it was a 2-year process with a lot of difficult decisions. We had to kind of bump up against administration for some of those decisions. They pushed back against us. And it was very expensive, and it was very thorough. And we actually went, as the board was picking an investigation team, went out of our way not to pick a group that was identified by the complainants or the district, but try and find someone neutral to get the clearest picture possible. So I just want to put it out there that it wasn't an easy decision, and it was something that we spent a lot of time and effort on. It wasn't something that happened in a short period of time. The report was extremely thorough. So my heart goes out to everyone who's kind of hurting tonight. And I really want to say I did hear all that feedback, and it was really difficult to listen to, but it wasn't an easy or quick decision on our part. I guess that's my one takeaway.
Sorry, unrelated alarm from my phone. Yeah, I think something that I want to note that I didn't read earlier, but just want to make sure that it's on record. like folks have said, this is not something that we took lightly. We really wanted to be thorough and do our due diligence to make sure that the complaint was seen through. We were actually hoping to have this while Donna was still chair. You know, she was the chair at the time for most of the complaint, and I was vice. And so we really, really worked hard to make sure that it was moving forward. And even though it did not move as fast as we wanted it to, you know, we wanted to center equity. That was the biggest part since the beginning. And yeah, the decision was not easy. When we, you know, created the response, it was Heather and I, since there was a leadership change. And part of the response that I didn't get to read that I want to make sure is on record is that, you know, with the new administrator, the new principal, we do want there to be a thorough community engagement process to decide who that is and deciding, you know, who the next leader of Gilbert Park will be. And so I just want to note that we really, really want to engage as many people as possible in that process, so that, you know, that is something that is accounted for, including, you know, community members such as parents, students, and obviously staff. So.
Yeah, I just, you know, I really feel for everybody hurting. I do know this is a tough time for the whole community that was here tonight. And I also want to acknowledge one of the sentiments I heard quite a bit tonight, and we also shared, we didn't read, but we did, is that this isn't about, you know, that these kinds of systems don't live with one person, right? This was not a person, individual issue. We're all responsible for the system that we're serving in, and that a lot of the work we'll be doing as a board is to figure out our role in creating change, this type of transformational change that would, you know, hold us accountable and, you know, continue to work with the Gilbert Park community, but also just the larger district. And that we are committed as a board and cabinet to working together to figure out, you know, processes to improve. There was a lot more recommendations in the report, and so we'll be responding to each of those and figuring out how to take our role of ownership, which is much larger, in responding to all of the findings. And so I just want to note that I take ownership also, and I don't take that lightly. It's not done, like one decision from the investigation still has lots of recommendations and instructions for us to improve.
And there is a lot of work to be done, and we couldn't have asked for a better team to do the work with. So I really appreciate everyone here, everyone who came. Yeah, and we have a lot of growing to do, and I'm really happy to be doing it with you all and everyone in our community. So.
I don't know that you want to hear from Cabinet, but I would like to just simply put out there, I think when incidents like this take place, that we are completely thoughtful and we ensure that our principals are given an opportunity, a due process. And I feel like a due process was missing from this. In addition, I feel like my department was undermined as professionals. And the reason why I say that is because our DI department did a lot of work with Stacy, and that was never reviewed, what we did. So there was a decision made without us reflecting on the steps that she had taken. I also worry about the impact and narrative that this creates for other principals. This is not an easy job at all. And so when we think about recruiting other folks to come into our district, we have to look at our practices that we do as a team. I feel heavy about it just because we were working side by side for a year and a half. And again, our work wasn't ever brought to the table or reviewed. And so I just ask that we consider to ensure that we have due processes in place when we go through protocols like this, and we ensure that we lean into Cabinet, because I don't sit in this position without considering myself an expert. And I think everyone in Cabinet folks have always tapped into us on a state level because they value the work that we do here as a district. And I just want to be considered a professional and part of the team.
Thank you, Tay. All right, thank you, everyone. So next is board liaisons and committee reports. I don't think we heard anyone had anything, so I think we can, unless there's different, but we can move on to the amended agenda item on a recent complaint. So I'll pass it to Heather. Right? Yeah.
Okay, so we have received a complaint. In the nature of the complaint is board leadership violation of board policy BDDC. And this is in regards to changing the agenda at the June 13th board meeting. And so what our job is tonight is to review the nature of the complaint and also the recommendations and see if, we're going to move forward or so forth. So the main state law that we're referencing in deciding what to do is this filing that we've received from ORS 192705. And so I think we've all had time to review that and discuss. So the main question is whether or not we violated our policy by changing the agenda after posting it. So the question is whether or not that is a violation. The recommendations and the advice that I understand is that we do have to post the agenda in time, but there is no rules in terms of changing the agenda. And that perhaps going forward we could make sure to address that going forward at the beginning of a board meeting, but that that we were not out of compliance in just changing the agenda. That's open for everybody else's take on the findings.
From the feedback we got from the OSBA legal department, I think that was my understanding too, and I appreciate you, articulating it.
I'm not sure. I think because I'm named not named, but as board leadership at the time is kind of confusing with the change, but being one of the last, or being part of the last board leadership as well. Not sure how much I could say, but we did our best. We did post on time as we do, so we were in compliance, at least to our understanding there. And we wanted to let folks know prior to the meeting that we wanted to extend the deadline to our board applicants, which was that agenda item that we're speaking of. And so, we let folks know beforehand, but I think, in moving forward, we would want to be transparent and amend that right at the beginning of the meetings moving forward. Or I would ask us to do that moving forward, I guess. So I don't know what other folks feel around whether this is, should we proceed with an investigation, I guess is the question.
Yeah, the way I'm reading the law is that, we have a number of choices, right? We can deny the facts, or we can admit that the facts are correct, but that they're not in violation of policy, which is what I would suggest, is that there's no disagreement about the facts that we changed the agenda. I think my understanding from what Gabby is saying is that, our intention was to give everybody proper notice that they didn't show up to give their presentations and then have the agenda be changed. So the intention was not to, the intention was to be more thoughtful, not less, but that we wanted to postpone the process. And so My recommendation is that we agree to the facts set forth, but that we do not go further because we do not see it as a violation. That's what I recommend.
I agree with that, and I will mention that yes, when we're removing agenda items, maybe we should do a formal, like you said, amending it. But we amend our agenda all the time on the fly. People go in different orders. We take longer times for different sections. That's actually amending an agenda, but we don't go through a formal process. So there was no ill will here, like you said. We thought we were being more thoughtful by letting people know ahead of time. So.
Yeah, I know I made a request to leadership specifically because it was just a extremely hectic time. I was really low on bandwidth, and I knew that part of this meeting we wouldn't have a full group of board members to vote on a new candidate, and it's a big deal bringing someone new onto the board and adopting them into the team and just sharing the table. So I wanted to be as thoughtful as possible in that selection. I didn't even know that people had applied already or who had applied. I think the idea was just to give us more time to be thoughtful and make the best possible decision. And I think that's what our leadership did, and I support that, I'd like to make a motion to dismiss the complaint.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, so we can do a roll call vote, starting with Jose.
Camille Jerson, aye.
Franklin, aye.
Saldaña Lopez, aye.
Barrow, aye.
It has been approved. So we can move on to our next agenda item, which is the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. And I will keep it brief. I am very aware of the time, but there are a couple things I definitely want to address. First and foremost, I want to apologize to our entire community. I know we're streaming. There might be people watching tonight. We did delay summer school due to heat, so Monday and Tuesday. So just the reality that we did not take that decision lightly. I stand behind the decision. I think it was the right decision. But the reality is it did impact our community. I know that, and I just want to, one, apologize to our community that we made that decision. We delayed until Wednesday. And two, thank our community for their understanding and flexibility. And the reality, we did on Wednesday launch our summer school programming, and it was an exciting day. And actually we had bargaining at Menlo, and many of us showed up at bargaining right at release of summer school. So real quickly, kind of an update for fun, and I will be brief, but just so you know, the high school specific incoming 9th grade counts, there's 159 students. There's 3 teachers. For the credit recovery type, we have 153 students, 9th graders, 8 teachers. 10th grade, we have 132, 8 teachers. 11th grade, we have 121, 7 teachers. In 12th grade, we have 31 students, 6 teachers. Special education students being served this summer at the high school, 73. ELL students being served this summer at high school, 194. Obviously rough numbers always, but just a snapshot and really a celebration, just knowing, I know a lot of people think, school districts closed during the summer. I don't think there's anything farther from the truth. We are not closed. We're doing a lot to serve kids, and it's really exciting. Compounding that and really extending that celebration, and I just want to start by thanking Brooke, because it's her leadership that really has been a champion here. I know she would be the first to recognize Elise Hall as well, who's been at the forefront, but we are running 3 programs of summer school that's kind of new. We've been doing it the last couple of years, but the high school, we've had ongoing summer school for years and years. But at the basically for our other levels, we have 3 programs running: early kindergarten transition, EKT. We have elementary summer school, 1st through 5th, middle schools, 5th through 6th transition. We have 5 sites. We have Menlo Park, Cherry Park, and Ventura Park, all at Menlo. We have Lincoln Park West, all at Mill, and then we have Gilbert Park, Gilbert Heights at Earl Boyle, so we're sharing space. Student enrollment, EKT 150, elementary 1st through 5th, we're serving 722 students. Middle school 6th grade, 158 students. Number of staff, EKT 23, elementary 169, middle school 30, bus drivers 17 plus. And unfortunately, I want to give a shout out because we heard Darla, we absolutely have food service as well. We just didn't get the numbers before this report, so I don't have the exact numbers. But again, part of this is to share with the board, just knowing in our community, but really the bigger part is to thank our staff who are leaning in to support service, thank our families who are leaning in to do the work. It's exciting, it's different, it's not always easy to staff in summer, but ultimately we're doing it every day, and I'm really excited and proud of that work. Also want to recognize and share community partners involved in this as well. Through SUN, we have ERCO, Metropolitan Family Services, El Programa Hispano, Portland Parks and Rec, and then the Oregon Ballet Theater. And the funding source for the board to remember, ODE Summer Learning Grant, DDSD, we were awarded $1.5 million to do this work. So exciting work again, Brooke, thank you and you and your team. And I know also I want to recognize, our principals, our elementary principals, middle school, high school, but our assistant principals, they are doing a heavy lift to do this work this summer. Really excited and proud. So thank you to our entire community. The second thing with that is the reality we did receive. I sent an email around a concern that was brought to a reporter's attention around bus stops and specifically some summer school and thinking about safety of students. And we've had many conversations both online or offline about the safety in the community and how can we help and what can we do. But this specifically had to do with our bus stops, and I just wanted to share with the board and again our entire community that anytime we get a report or hear, we're calling, we're on the phone. But this is my ask to our community, that there is a line, if our community does not know, it's called 311. And just a description here, 311 is your first call to help with any questions or local government services needs within Multnomah County. So as always, if we ever get a report, we pick up this phone and we call. But I would like to ask our community as well, if they ever see something unsafe that they think's impacting our schools, they, of course, please call us, but they can call this as well. So just a kind of a public announcement here, just reaching out to our families and community. And the final thing, again, to be as brief as I possibly can, it is a tradition in our district to recognize our board leadership and to say thank you. And although she's sitting in board leadership currently, she is our chair of our board. She just got done serving 2 years, not 1, 2 years as our vice chair. So to Gabriella on behalf of the school board for outstanding leadership as school board vice chair for 22-23, 23-24. Thank you so much for your service. We really appreciate it. Thank you. And Madam Chair, that's my report for the night.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope you all can keep cool as it's still pretty hot outside. Thank you so much, and that's our meeting today. I was not expecting this.